Hey everyone, this is Light Novel Sound. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're enjoying the series, feel free to leave a like and drop a comment below. It really helps the channel. And if you'd like faster updates or want to request a story, you can support the channel over on Buy Me a Coffee. Now, let's pick up the story where we left off. Chapter 501, Peony Garden. In the huge music temple, only one sun beast would spawn every time. This made it much more difficult for Zhou Wen to obtain a sun beast companion egg. He had no choice but to sacrifice his blood to grind for one. Thankfully, other than the sun beast, Zhou Wen could also farm rare dimensional creatures such as the baby tiger, the elegant emperor's avatar puppet, the runic heavy armored warrior, the three-eyed golden warrior, mutated overlord snake, and so on. Some companion beasts' levels weren't high, but their skills or life providences were very useful. If he farmed a few more, he might be able to use them when they were fused in the future. While grinding for pets, Zhou Wen found a good place. The place Zhou Wen found wasn't in Sunset College, but a dimensional zone in Luoyang. It wasn't very famous, and ordinary people seldom went there because there weren't many dimensional creatures there. Furthermore, the drop rate was low, making it a chore. Most people weren't willing to go, but Zhou Wen felt that it was a good place. The dimensional zone that he had specially applied to go to was Peony Garden. There was a legend in the region that the first empress of the East District had once ordered 100 flowers to bloom after she got drunk in Chang'an to cheer her up. The blooming season was different for 100 flowers. However, due to the empress's might, they had no choice but to bloom at the same time. The empress was elated to see this. However, she realized that amongst the 100 flowers, there was a flower that had yet to bloom. It was still standing amidst the 100 flowers with withered leaves. It was a peony. The empress was furious and demoted the peony to Luoyang. However, who knew that the moment the peony reached Luoyang, it immediately bloomed with a beautiful rosy red color. The empress got even more furious when she heard of this. She ordered for the peonies to be burnt. To everyone's surprise, the peonies became even more beautiful amidst the flames. It was said that this peony garden was the place where the empress demoted the peony. Of course, that was only a legend. No matter how powerful the empress of the human world was, she couldn't dictate the blooming of flowers. Therefore, it was still a mystery why Peony Garden could become a dimensional zone. The peony flowers in the peony garden were dimensional creatures. In the past, there were people who wantonly reaped them. Unfortunately, peony flowers didn't drop dimensional crystals or companion eggs. Eventually, no one came here to cut peonies. There were two types of dimensional creatures that could be killed in the peony garden. One of them was a bee-type dimensional creature, while the other was a butterfly type. However, there weren't many of them, so it was rather troublesome to find them. They were all poisonous and didn't drop any good items. Therefore, Peony Garden gradually lost its importance. The reason Zhou Wen came to Peony Garden wasn't to kill the bees and butterflies. It was because there were very few people here. Furthermore, it was said that there was an immortal root in Peony Garden that was the closest to nature. Zhou Wen only wanted to come here to game. While gaming, he could also sense the flora and fauna. It could be considered a form of intimacy with nature. Perhaps he could gain a deeper understanding of the Tao body and condense a life soul. Condensing a life soul and advancing a life soul weren't simple tasks. Not only did he need a lot of practice, but having perception and opportunities was also very important. He was temporarily stuck at advancing Slaughterer, the inverse ancient sovereign, and lost country. All Zhou Wen could do was study the Tao art and small perfection of Wisdom Sutra. He arrived at the Peony Garden and indeed, he saw a bunch of flowers. At a glance, there was a stretch of colorful flowers that extended for hundreds of kilometers. They were like a breathtakingly beautiful sea of flowers. The beauty of peony gave people a sense of oppression. Some people felt that it was too beautiful, while others felt that it was a glorious beauty. Some even said that peony was the queen of flowers. Zhou Wen didn't know much about flowers. He only felt that the peony flowers were indeed beautiful. As they had transformed into dimensional creatures, the beauty of peony was even more shocking. Zhou Wen walked into the garden and found a stone pavilion in the sea of flowers. As he sat in the stone pavilion, he gamed while taking in the flora and fauna. The peony garden was indeed different from other dimensional zones. It was quiet and tranquil, and the fragrance of flowers was refreshing. Apart from the stunning beauty of the peony flowers, it was indeed a good quiet place. However, Zhou Wen didn't have any special insights. As he circulated the Tao art, he gamed. He didn't make any progress with the Tao art, so he focused on gaming and didn't think too much about it. After playing for a few hours, he heard footsteps. Zhou Wen originally didn't plan on paying attention to them, but the footsteps approached his stone pavilion. He used Truth Listener's ability to listen. Two people came. One was a middle-aged man, and the other was a 12-year-old youth. The two of them were dressed in odd plain clothes. A robe was worn outside, and they did not look like locals. The middle-aged man walked in front. The young man held a sheathed saber in his hand and followed behind the middle-aged man. The two of them walked all the way to the stone pavilion. They didn't walk very fast, as if they were taking a stroll and enjoying the scenery of Peony Garden. To be honest, the peony was indeed beautiful, but there was a limit to being able to appreciate it. This was also why many people always found the grass greener on the other side. It wasn't because the things weren't good, but because people were prone to change. They believed that what is rare is dear, and they didn't know how to cherish all that they had seen. The middle-aged man kept observing the peony flowers, but he still seemed to be in high spirits. He studied the peony flowers closely. The youth's temperament was clearly not as staid as the middle-aged man's. After watching for a while, he found it boring, but he still followed behind the middle-aged man obediently. He did not cross the line and looked like he had a good upbringing. "Teacher, there's already someone inside this pavilion," the youth said in disappointment when they arrived in front of the stone pavilion. However, the middle-aged man did not mind. He stood outside the pavilion and asked, "Young friend, can you let us rest for a while?" "Of course. The stone pavilion is a common facility. You can use it as long as you want," Zhou Wen said. After thanking him, the middle-aged man walked into the stone pavilion with the young man. The youth carried a large box on his back. He put the box down and opened it before taking out a cloth and laying it on the ground. Then, he took out a small wooden table and some random items. It looked like a picnic, but the tools on the table looked like they were used for brewing tea. The middle-aged man and the young man sat down at the small wooden table. The young man could make tea with those complicated tea sets. "It's fate that we meet. Young friend, if you don't mind, why don't you try our hometown tea?" the middle-aged man said to Zhou Wen. "Thank you for your kindness. I'm not thirsty." After saying that, Zhou Wen continued gaming. The middle-aged man didn't mind either. As he drank his tea, he enjoyed the flowers. He looked rather pleased. "Teacher, there are so many famous dimensional zones in Luoyang. Why do we have to come to Peony Garden? Even dimensional creatures are rare here. Is there anything special about this place?" The youth brewed a cup of tea and sat opposite him, asking the middle-aged man. Chapter 502, Not on the Same Level. Flowers are like life. The plum blossoms are proud to the core, and their chrysanthemums are lofty and pure. They bloom when other flowers wilt. Therefore, the first impression you have of them is that they are extraordinary. However, the peony is different. Its blooming time is not unique. Many flowers bloom in the same period of time, but in this season when the flowers bloom, it is still able to stand out. This is a kind of temperament, a kind of fearlessness. The plum blossoms and chrysanthemums are unique, but if they can stand out among the masses, they are extraordinary in different ways, first among extraordinariness, said the middle-aged man. The young man did not seem to understand what he was saying. He looked up at the peony flower outside the stone pavilion. It was beautiful, but after looking at it for a long time, he got used to it. After some thought, the youth said, "I still like the cherry blossoms from our hometown. They aren't that colorful, but they are still as beautiful. Furthermore, when they are at their most beautiful, they will wither. They won't slowly wither like the flowers here, which serves to remind me of heroes dying at their prime. The momentary brilliance is naturally the most beautiful. However, life is not just an instance. Cherry blossoms do not only bloom for a year," the middle-aged man said after drinking a cup of tea. The young man quickly brewed another cup for the middle-aged man. After the middle-aged man drank it, he said, "The temperature of the tea today is still a little lacking. Teacher, we have been out for so long, and you always want me to make tea. When will you teach me the way of the sword?" The youth could not help but ask. The middle-aged man smiled. "You've been with me for 17 days since we set off. For you to endure asking until now, it's clear that your father has brought you up rather differently. Please enlighten me." The youth bowed. "My way of the sword is a little different from your family's. It focuses on comprehending. I've already taught you for 17 days, but you haven't gained any insight yet. When you do figure something out, it will be time for me to teach you the moves involved," said the middle-aged man. "You've taught me for 17 days. The youth was slightly taken aback. He looked at the middle-aged man with some doubt and said, "But in these 17 days, we've been traveling. You either get me to do some chores or make tea. When did you teach me anything? That's why you haven't figured it out yet." The middle-aged man smiled. The young man was still a young man after all. The past 17 days had seemingly ground away all his patience. He could not help but retort, "If I knew everything, Father wouldn't have made me acknowledge you as my master. Please teach me." As he spoke, the young man knelt before the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man shook his head. "Your level of insight is still insufficient." The youth was not convinced. He raised his head and said, "I'm 12 years old this year and have already advanced to legendary. I once went to the East Heaven Academy to compete with the top 10 geniuses in the way of the sword. No one in the entire East Heaven Academy was my match. If my level of insight isn't sufficient, then who can meet the mark? Sparring is ultimately only sparring. It doesn't mean anything. Moreover, this world is very big. The East Heaven Academy is not equal to the entire world," said the middle-aged man indifferently. The youth could not help but feel enraged when he realized that he was unable to move the middle-aged man no matter what he said. However, his teacher was too famous. He was disciplined from a young age to not go against his teacher excessively. He had nowhere to vent his pent-up anger. Just as the youth was feeling upset, he suddenly thought of Zhou Wen on the other side of the stone pavilion. He stood up and walked in front of Zhou Wen. He bowed slightly and asked, "Are you a local here?" "No, I study here," Zhou Wen answered. The youth's eyes lit up when he heard that. He sized up Zhou Wen and asked, "Which school are you from?" "Sunset College," Zhou Wen casually replied when he saw that he was rather polite. "I've heard of Sunset College. It's a college that's in the Federation's top 10. It should be the best school here, right?" The youth's eyes lit up. "Probably," Zhou Wen said. When the youth heard that, he turned to the middle-aged man and asked, "Teacher, Sunset College is one of the top 10 academies in the Federation. It's ranked higher than East Heaven Academy. They don't know who I am, so they naturally won't give in to me. If I can defeat the best student at Sunset College, will you be able to teach me the way of the sword?" The middle-aged man merely smiled and did not speak. He picked up the teacup and took a sip. Without any reply from his teacher, the youth bowed and said, "Then I'll take it that teacher has agreed." With that said, the youth stood up and walked in front of Zhou Wen. He asked, "May I ask who is the strongest student at Sunset College?" "Strongest?" Zhou Wen thought carefully before replying. I guess the publicly recognized #1 person should be the president of the student council, right? What's his name? The youth asked. YG, Zhou Wen answered. YG. The youth repeated it a few times before walking to the middle-aged man and bowing. Teacher, I'll go to Sunset College to challenge its strongest student. After I return victorious, you should be able to teach me the way of the sword, right? There's a student from Sunset College here. Why do you have to seek someone so far? The middle-aged man glanced at Zhou Wen and said with a smile. The youth said, I want to defeat the strongest student of Sunset College, not an ordinary student. But in my opinion, he is stronger than you, the middle-aged man said. The youth naturally refused to believe him. He looked at Zhou Wen and asked, What's your standard in Sunset College? Very weak. It's considered mediocre. You should go to Sunset College to find YG, Zhou Wen said. He wasn't interested in dealing with the child. The youth looked at the middle-aged man and said, Teacher, it seems that you have misjudged this time. The middle-aged man ignored the youth and looked at Zhou Wen with a smile. My young friend, may I ask what rank you were in the last comprehensive test at Sunset College? I barely ranked 10th, Zhou Wen answered. The youth sized up Zhou Wen again when he heard that. After a while he nodded and said, 10th place is indeed lacking. However, since teacher has spoken, I'll first defeat you before challenging the best, YG. As he spoke, the youth made a strange hand gesture and said, Please accept my challenge. Sorry, I don't have time, Zhou Wen said as he played games. He was completely uninterested in the youth and had no interest in bullying children. The youth couldn't help but frown slightly. Zhou Wen's attitude made him feel belittled. I'm Xianxia. Please enlighten me. The young man stood as though he was about to draw his saber and held the handle of the saber as if he was about to strike at any moment. Zhou Wen had already rejected him, so there was no need for him to repeat himself. He ignored him and continued gaming. A sliver of anger flashed in Xianxia's eyes as he suddenly unsheathed his saber. The saber beam flashed and slashed at Zhou Wen like lightning. Zhou Wen was still gaming. He didn't even raise his eyelids as the saber beam slashed past him. Although it looked dangerous, it didn't even hit his clothes. The middle-aged man's expression changed slightly. He stood up and said, Shin, step back. He is not on the same level as you. Chapter 503, Sei Gasakai. Xianxia was not convinced to begin with. After hearing his teacher's evaluation, he became even more indignant. However, his teacher had already stood up. As a disciple, he had to maintain his etiquette. He could only step aside and sulk. I'm Sei Gasakai. May I know your name? The middle-aged man asked Zhou Wen. There's no need to be this polite with me. My name is Zhou Wen, Zhou Wen said as he put down his phone. As Zhou Wen had never heard of the name Sei Gasakai, he didn't think much of it. However, this name was famous in another region and even the entire Federation. Speaking of the sword hero Sei Gasakai, many people who practiced the way of the sword knew that he used to be a first-rate sword master who practiced Nighten Ikai Ryu 10 years ago, and he was also famous locally for his good looks. However, Zhou Wen didn't know any of this. Seeing his teacher, Sei Gasakai, solemnly mention his name, while Zhou Wen only sat there silently, Xianxia could not help but snort coldly. He felt that Zhou Wen didn't respect his teacher, Sei Gasakai. Sei Gasakai didn't mind as he said with a smile, Zhou Wen, are you familiar with Chancellor Leng Zheng in your studies at Sunset College? It's very rare to see Chancellor Leng. He's no longer teaching, Zhou Wen answered truthfully. Isn't your mentor Leng Zheng? Then who is your mentor? Sei Gasakai was slightly surprised. Zhou Wen was so young, yet he had such a cultivation realm. He believed that Zhou Wen was Leng Zheng's student. His visit to Luoyang was to challenge Leng Zheng. Wang Fei, Zhou Wen answered subconsciously. After Wang Fei left, many things happened to Zhou Wen. He seldom interacted with the new tutor, and he still thought of Wang Fei as his tutor. Furthermore, Wang Fei and Wang Minjuan were both members of Luoyang's Wang family. Zhou Wen subconsciously wanted to acknowledge Wang Fei as his tutor. Sei Gasukai thought for a moment. He had never heard of this name before. In fact, Sei Gasukai didn't like the other teachers of Sunset College. He believed that the only one worthy to fight him at Sunset College was the Chancellor, Leng Zheng. Therefore, he didn't know much about the other teachers. He only knew a few of the more famous tutors. Even though the mentors were rather famous in the Federation, Sei Gasukai did not think of them as opponents. Although Zhou Wen wasn't a student taught by Leng Zheng, since he was a student of Sunset College and had such accomplishments at such a young age, Sei Gasukai wanted to know of Zhou Wen's accomplishments. Sei Gasukai originally could only tell that Zhou Wen's cultivation level wasn't bad. He remained unperturbed despite being in front of them. This made him find the young student pretty good. It was only later, when Han Shinsakura probed Zhou Wen, hoping to force him to take action, did Sei Gasukai realize that Zhou Wen wasn't ordinary. His martial realm wasn't low, but it wasn't obvious how high it was. If there's nothing else, I wish to continue gaming. Zhou Wen lowered his head and continued gaming. Sei Gasukai didn't make any remarks as he looked at the peony flower outside the stone pavilion. A gust of wind blew past, and a withered petal fell, blowing into the stone pavilion. He extended his slender fingers and clamped the petal between his fingers. "Little friend, take a look at this petal. You see anything different about it?" With that said, Sei Gasukai extended his index finger and middle finger towards Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen immediately felt his body tremble as he couldn't help but look up at Sei Gasukai. Sei Gasukai's finger wasn't fast, but when it landed in Zhou Wen's eyes, the scenery was completely different. The life force in the peony garden seemed to have followed Sei Gasukai's finger. It was as if he was the lord of the peony garden, and the peony garden moved under his power. Zhou Wen felt that he wasn't facing Sei Gasukai, but the billions of flowers in the peony garden. The power gathered on the petals was like a boundless sea. He immediately felt immense pressure. Zhou Wen wore a solemn expression as he sat on the bench. His fingers were like swords as he extended them towards the petal delivered by Sei Gasukai, clamping the other side of the petal. At that instant, Zhou Wen felt a strange force rush over. Flowers bloomed and fell. The sun rose and set. From life to death, Zhou Wen felt his body rapidly aging as time flew by. A strange glint flashed across Sei Gasukai's eyes. In the past, he had cultivated Nighten Ikai Ryu. The so-called Nighten Ikai Ryu meant that the sky had the sun and the moon, and humans were divided into yin and yang. The Nighten Ikai Ryu was also about complementing yin and yang. Nighten Ikai Ryu warriors usually held a takai in their right hand and a small takai in their left hand. This yin and yang produced endless changes. Sei Gasukai was extremely talented. After being repeatedly honed by dimensional zones and gaining insights, not only did he reach the pinnacle of Nighten Ikai Ryu, but he had also basically created a lineage using the Nighten Ikai Ryu as a foundation, allowing his strength to improve greatly. This lineage not only focused on yin and yang, the incorporeal and corporeal, but it also had a great relationship with time and life. Sei Gasukai had yet to name this lineage. This time, he had come to Luoyang to challenge Leng Zheng. If he could defeat him, he planned to name the lineage he created. As Zhou Wen was a student of Sunset College, Sei Gasukai had originally planned on using his newly created technique to test his cultivation level and realm. He didn't really want to fight him. However, when he used the will renewal concept in his saber art, he realized that Zhou Wen wasn't affected at all. With that, he gradually strengthened his will in the sword. Zhou Wen felt as though countless flowers had bloomed before waning as time seemed to pass rapidly. It was as though the entire peony garden had turned into a flower graveyard. He had also gone from young to old as though he was about to die. When Seraphim saw that Zhou Wen remained unmoved, he couldn't help but be astonished. He had already thought highly of Zhou Wen to begin with, but he never expected the youth in front of him to be even stronger than he had imagined. He couldn't help but strengthen his sword will, as it changed from the will renewal to life and death. Xianxia watched from the side, but he didn't sense anything. All he saw was Zhou Wen and Seraphim each holding a petal. One of them was standing while the other was sitting, motionless. Xianxia was somewhat puzzled. He did not know what his teacher Seraphim was doing, but he did not dare disturb him. He could only wait patiently by the side. But as he watched, Xianxia's eyes widened. His teacher, Seraphim, had his hairbands snap and his long black hair flowed down. His long black hair was gradually turning white. In just moments, his long black hair had turned snow white. "Teacher, what's wrong?" Xianxia was alarmed as he hurriedly stood up. He wanted to rush over and push Zhou Wen away. Boom! However, just as he took a few steps towards Zhou Wen, he felt a terrifying force slam into him. His body involuntarily flew out and landed outside the stone pavilion. Blood oozed out of his mouth, and a few of his bones were broken. He looked at Zhou Wen in the stone pavilion in horror, and struggled several times but failed to get up. Chapter 504, Tao Body's Soul Condensation. After Zhou Wen arrived at the peony garden, he had been constantly circulating the Tao art. When Seraphim's sword will crashed down on him, it made him feel both a will renewal and life and death. However, this pressure didn't cause Zhou Wen's will to waver. Instead, he suddenly seemed to gain enlightenment. With Zhou Wen's enlightenment, the Tao Sutra in his body also underwent some strange changes. His Tao body and essence, vitality and spirit were trembling. His entire body and mind seemed to resonate with everything in the world, causing them to constantly transform and condense within his body. At this moment, Zhou Wen had actually begun condensing a Tao Sutra life soul. Seraphim didn't know that his sword will was useless against Zhou Wen. Instead, it aided Zhou Wen by constantly giving him insights. Seeing how Zhou Wen remained motionless, Seraphim was alarmed. He pushed the sword while he had comprehended to its limits. His essence energy had already been infused into it. It wasn't as simple as probing anymore. It was a true sparring match. The sword's force surged towards Zhou Wen through the flower petal that the two were holding. This nameless sword strike was still unable to shake Zhou Wen, despite Seraphim pushing his sword will to the extreme. His sword force, which carried the will renewal as well as life and death, vanished without a trace after entering Zhou Wen's body. Seraphim was shocked. He had relied on his comprehension of this strike to push his life soul to perfect stage. He had even planned on using this strike to challenge Leng Zheng. However, who knew that this strike wouldn't even be able to do a thing to a mere student of Sunset College? Instantly, Seraphim felt despair. He felt like he had lost all hope in life. His black hair turned white in a short period of time. Seraphim had no idea that even if his strike were to clash with Leng Zheng, it was impossible for it to be ineffective. However, Zhou Wen's Tao body and the life soul he was condensing were the nemeses of his strike. If he were to use his life soul to fight Zhou Wen was definitely not his match. However, just the power of life and death alone was unable to do a thing to him. Zhou Wen felt his essence, vitality, and spirit condense towards his brain. The power of Seraphim's sword was also sucked in. A certain power in the world was flowing towards his brain, pouring into him like a river. Zhou Wen felt that a crystal had condensed in his mind. The crystal was very strange, as though it was in his brain, but it wasn't anywhere in his brain. It was as though it was something that only existed in his consciousness, but Zhou Wen could clearly sense its existence. Once the life soul was formed, Zhou Wen immediately felt refreshed as though he had been reborn. Boundless essence energy surged out of the crystal like life soul, making him feel like he was bathing in a spring. Xianxia could not accept the fact that he was inferior to a student at Sunset College. He could not accept that the sword Tao he had comprehended over the years was completely useless. When Zhou Wen's life soul condensed, the fluctuations of the life soul's power caused Xianxia's life soul to vibrate. A sword soul that resembled a devil or a god appeared over Xianxia's body. Xianxia was dumbfounded. He had never expected that his teacher, the renowned sword hero Xianxia, would use his life soul when he was competing with a student. That was a perfect life soul, Samsara sword sage. Countless epic experts were defeated by the reincarnation sword sage of Xianxia. It was a supreme existence with the power to determine life and death. In the next second, Xianxia saw Xianxia's white hair fluttering in the wind. The Samsara sword sage had merged with Xianxia. An attack eye condensed from light and darkness appeared in his hand. The petal had already melted from the terrifying power. Xianxia held the takai in his hand. In his despair, he no longer had any other thoughts. All he wanted to do was prove himself and his sword Tao as he slashed at Zhou Wen. Wherever the blade beam passed, the surrounding flowers were affected by it. Half of the flowers were blooming, while the other half was wilting, as though heaven and hell were separated. Teacher actually used this strike. Xianxia was extremely shocked. Not only did Xianxia use his life soul, but he also used his most powerful strike. This strike was something Xianxia had only heard from his father, but he had never seen it before. His father had seen this move of Xianxia's. He had originally been comparable to Xianxia in strength, but in the end, he decided to hand over his beloved son, Xianxia, to Xianxia for guidance. Furthermore, he held Xianxia in high esteem, saying that he was the #1 sword practitioner. Xianxia followed Xianxia and wanted to learn this move the most. However, Xianxia had never used it before, so he had never seen it. Today was the first time he had truly witnessed this attack. However, the strike that was described as an attack that could kill devils and gods alike was actually used by Xianxia against a student. This made Xianxia feel incredulous. However, he had finally witnessed the power of the strike. It was truly an attack that wielded the power of a devil or a god. However, due to the power of the attack, the peony garden was reduced to hell. All the flowers had withered. Such power was truly awe-inspiring. It's no wonder even a person like father holds such high regard for teacher. With such a powerful strike, who in the world can match it? Xianxia praised in his heart. But in the next second, Xianxia was rooted to the spot. His eyes widened to the extreme, but his pupils constricted like needles as he looked into the stone pavilion in disbelief. Zhou Wen was still sitting on the bench in the stone pavilion. He wasn't moved by Xianxia's mighty strike, nor did he have any intention of standing up. All he did was grab a jade bamboo in his hand. There was a flash. A saber revealed itself in the bamboo. Xianxia had never seen such a magnificent and domineering technique before. The gorgeous saber beam sliced through the void, leaving an inextinguishable mark on his mind. When Xianxia looked at the saber beam clearly, he realized that the bamboo blade had already returned to its sheath, as though it had never moved. However, when he looked at Xianxia again, the attack condensed from light and darkness in his hand suddenly broke apart, turning into specks of starlight before dissipating. The terrifying intent also shattered. I lost. Xianxia stood there and stared at Zhou Wen in a daze. His eyes had already lost focus. Xianxia sat on the ground. He really could not accept this outcome. Xianxia, the man known as the #1 sword hero, his teacher, had actually been defeated by a student who was not much older than him. Looking at Zhou Wen, who was still sitting in the stone pavilion, Han Shinsakura suddenly felt that he wasn't a person but a devil. The earlier strike was a devil's power. However, that gorgeous saber move had left an inextinguishable mark deep within his soul. He could not help but recall it repeatedly. Chapter 505. Knight and Flying Immortal Ryu. Teacher. Han Shinsakura suddenly saw a trickle of blood on Sei Gasakai's neck. He couldn't help but be shocked and went to rush over. "If I were you, I wouldn't touch him," Zhou Wen said. Upon hearing Zhou Wen's words, Han Shinsakura's body trembled. He stood outside the stone pavilion and didn't rush in. He stared at Zhou Wen and gritted his teeth as he asked, "Your Excellency, since you have already won, why do you have to go so far as to kill him?" Zhou Wen pointed at Sei Gasakai and said, "I'm not a murderer. Why would I kill him? Your teacher is probably envisaging a battle in his mind. I don't know what will happen if you disturb him." Doubtful, Han Shinsakura looked at Sei Gasakai. Seeing that his teacher was standing there in a daze, his eyes empty, and the wound on his neck only a superficial wound, he heaved a sigh of relief. "What's the name of the strike your teacher used just now?" Zhou Wen asked as he looked at Han Shinsakura. He now had comprehended the meaning of will renewal and life and death, thanks to Sei Gasakai's sword will. He had understood the relationship between humans and nature, which allowed the Tao body to condense a life soul. From this, one could tell that Sei Gasakai's move was indeed powerful. Han Shinsakura didn't dare belittle Zhou Wen any further. Although there wasn't much of a difference in age between the two of them, he treated himself as a junior. He cautiously answered, "That move isn't named. My teacher used the Nighten Ikai Ryu as a foundation before comprehending the 4 seasons, will renewal and life and death samsara concepts. He then created this blade technique." "I see." Zhou Wen nodded slightly and got up to leave. He came to the peony garden because he wanted to see if he could condense a Tao body life soul. Although the peony garden failed to help him in a way, Sei Gasakai had helped him. Zero taboo primordial body, union of heaven and man, invulnerable to all spells. With the appearance of the life soul, the word taboo behind essence energy disappeared. This was a life soul condensed from a Tao body. It was somewhat odd with being a crystal in his consciousness that seemed to have a corporeal form, but it also seemed incorporeal. It was this life soul that had blocked Sei Gasakai's will renewal move. It nullified the powers for Zhou Wen, allowing him to defeat Sei Gasakai. In terms of pure strength, Sei Gasakai's perfect stage, Samsara Sword Sage, was much stronger than Zhou Wen's life soul. If he hadn't used that move and had used ordinary essence energy to fight Zhou Wen's strike wouldn't have been able to win so easily. Upon seeing Zhou Wen walk out of the stone pavilion, Han Shinsakura anxiously asked, "How's my teacher?" "I didn't hurt him. It's just that he doesn't understand something. He'll naturally recover once he figures it out," Zhou Wen said without turning his head. Han Shinsakura hesitated for a moment. Seeing that Zhou Wen was about to leave, he couldn't help but shout at Zhou Wen's back, "What's the name of that strike of yours?" "Transcendent Flying Immortal," Zhou Wen answered as he walked. Soon, he entered the flower shrubs. Transcendent, Flying, Immortal. The gorgeous saber flashed through Han Shinsakura's mind again. That gesture sent shockwaves into his soul, one that he could not forget. An old man and a young man stood in the stone pavilion in a daze while the other stood outside the stone pavilion in a daze. After a while, Han Shinsakura suddenly heard a cry and hurriedly turned to look at Sei Gasakai. Sei Gasakai spat out a mouthful of blood. Han Shinsakura hurriedly rushed to Sei Gasakai. "Teacher, what's wrong?" Sei Gasakai spat out a mouthful of blood, but his expression was much better. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and revealed a smile. "So that's how it is. I see. It's no wonder I didn't name the move. It turns out that deep in my heart, I knew that it wasn't right. Now, I finally understand where I was wrong." With that said, Sei Gasakai looked around but didn't see Zhou Wen. He asked, "Where's Zhou Wen-kun?" "He went back," Han Shinsakura answered. "Why didn't you stop him?" Sei Gasakai blurted out. Han Shinsakura thought to himself, "How can I stop him when even you can't?" Of course, he did not say that out loud. Sei Gasakai probably realized that something was wrong with what he said, so he asked him, "Did you ask him what the name of that attack was?" "He said it was Transcendent Flying Immortal," Han Shinsakura replied. Sei Gasakai nodded and said, "So that saber move is called Transcendent Flying Immortal. My blade technique has taken the wrong path. I've been blindly pursuing the path of will renewal and life and death, but I've lost the true essence of Nighten Ikai Ryu. To think that I was so arrogant that I thought that my accomplishments had already reached the crest of perfection, and even had the thoughts of challenging Leng Zheng. I never expected that even a student from Sunset College could nullify my sword technique. That's good. After this battle, I've finally seen the path ahead clearly. I'm going back to revise my blade technique. Are you still willing to cultivate with me? You will forever be my teacher." Han Shinsakura immediately bowed. "All right, we'll head back now. I'll revamp my blade technique. From now on, this lineage will be called the Nighten Flying Immortal Ryu," Sei Gasakai said seriously. Nighten Flying Immortal Ryu. Han Shinsakura looked at Sei Gasakai in confusion. "My sword Dao came from the Nighten Ikai Ryu, and the strike that Zhou Wen-kun used to give me a wake-up call is called Transcendent Flying Immortal. In order to show respect, my style shall be called the Nighten Flying Immortal Ryu. I hope that after you inherit my sword Dao in the future, you will be able to advance further and use the blade technique of my Nighten Flying Immortal Ryu to defeat his Transcendent Flying Immortal," said Sei Gasakai. Nighten Flying Immortal Ryu. Han Shinsakura muttered to himself as Zhou Wen's gorgeous saber appeared in his mind. The master and disciple no longer went to find Leng Zheng and chose to leave Luoyang. Zhou Wen didn't take this matter to heart, but he didn't know that in the future, the Nighten Flying Immortal Ryu would become a mainstream sword sect overseas. But all of this was in the future. After returning to his dorm, Zhou Wen began studying the Zero Taboo Life Soul. He wanted to know what use it had. As of now, what he knew was that it could nullify the power of will renewal and power of death, but this was clearly not the true effect of the Zero Taboo. After launching the game dungeon, Zhou Wen entered the Metalwork Temple. He wanted to see if the Zero Taboo could block the power of the flames, but unfortunately, the blood-colored avatar was nearly burned to death. "It can't block the power of fire." Zhou Wen gritted his teeth and changed to another dungeon. He went to the music temple to try resisting the sound waves. However, it was useless. After activating the Zero Taboo, the sound wave struck the blood-colored avatar, sending it flying several meters away. It was so painful that Zhou Wen nearly convulsed. "It can't be. Don't tell me that this thing can only block the power of will renewal and death." Just as Zhou Wen was feeling depressed, he saw a sun beast rush out of the palace. Zhou Wen didn't experiment any further. He summoned the six-winged guardian dragon and made it kill the sun beast. After grinding so many times, he didn't even have a companion egg drop. He didn't hold any hopes this time, but the sun beast ended up dropping a companion egg. "It's finally here." Zhou Wen forgot about the Zero Taboo as his emotions became complicated. With the sun beast, he could finally fight Torch Dragon. Chapter 506, Fusion Armor. Zhou Wen had killed plenty of sun beasts, but this was the first time he had seen one clearly. As the sun beast's glare was so strong, it usually looked like a small sun. However, in reality, the sun beast was just a small crystal-like beast. It wasn't too big and emitted an intense light. Sun Beast, Epic. Life Providence, Son of the Sun. Life Soul, Solar Radiance. Strength, 39. Speed, 38. Constitution, 39. Essence Energy, 39. Talent Skill, Sun Arc. Companion form, crystal mirror. Zhou Wen summoned the sun beast and transformed it into a companion form. An intrinsic, sundial-like mirror appeared in his hand. The mirror clearly reflected Zhou Wen's shadow. It wasn't inferior to the modern-day mirrors. It was even clearer. Looking at the crystal mirror, Zhou Wen thought of a problem. This mirror was more than enough to block his face, and it was just big enough to block his chest. However, he couldn't hide his entire body behind the mirror. Zhou Wen didn't know if blocking a part of his body was of any use against Torch Dragon's bright torch vision world. Taking the sun beast with him, Zhou Wen opened the game dungeon and planned on giving it a try. Once again, he came to the shrine and summoned the six-winged guardian dragon, allowing it to charge into the temple as a vanguard. Under Zhou Wen's control, the blood-colored avatar cooperated with the six-winged guardian dragon and dealt with Torch Dragon. As Zhou Wen didn't know when Torch Dragon would use the bright torch vision world, he kept paying attention to Torch Dragon's eyes. Torch Dragon's eyes were usually dim. When it used bright torch vision world, the eyes would first light up before turning into a mirror. The process in the middle was a brief instant. Zhou Wen had to summon the sun beast when Torch Dragon used bright torch vision world. There was some skill involved. As the sun beast was only at the epic stage, it was impossible to summon it too early, or it would die under the intense combat strength. Therefore, Zhou Wen could only use this strategy. He was extremely familiar with Torch Dragon. When it used bright torch vision world, Zhou Wen summoned the crystal mirror in front of him and blocked the blood-colored avatar's face. In the next second, Zhou Wen saw a strange scene. The crystal mirror and blood-colored avatar's faces were indeed fine, but its body vanished. Then, the game screen turned black. The theurch didn't lie to me. The mirror is indeed useful, but the crystal mirror is a little too small. Zhou Wen wasn't discouraged. He knew that the mirror could restrain Torch Dragon, so killing it was only a matter of time. He went online to search for information again, to see if there were any bigger mirror companion eggs. However, he was somewhat disappointed. All known mirror companion beasts were relatively small in size. It was basically impossible to hide behind a mirror. The biggest known companion beast mirror was a magic mirror in the West District. However, the magic mirror was at the mythical stage. Up to this day, the 6 families had yet to destroy it. From the looks of it, getting a big mirror won't work. Is there any other way? Zhou Wen thought hard about how to use the smaller crystal mirror to perfectly crack bright torch vision world. Zhou Wen constantly came up with new strategies and kept experimenting. He spent a large amount of time grinding dungeons every day. Zhou Wen had yet to finish Torch Dragon, but he had obtained a 3-eyed golden warrior companion egg. He combined it with the epic golden warrior that he had previously combined. Although they were both golden warriors, their compatibility was only slightly more than 60. After hesitating for a moment, he chose to fuse them. Then, he watched as the golden warrior and the 3-eyed golden warrior companion egg were gradually devoured by the light before they merged into one. When the light dissipated and a golden warrior appeared on the game screen, Zhou Wen finally relaxed. The stats of the golden warrior increased significantly after being fused. All of them were above 30, and his luck was quite different. With the 3-eyed golden warrior as a supplement, it retained its invulnerable golden body. As such, the golden warrior had golden bell, invulnerable golden body, and the Fist of War. Fist of War wasn't of much use to Zhou Wen. He mainly focused on the golden bell and invulnerable golden body, which greatly enhanced his defense. When he went to the temple to attack Torch Dragon again, Zhou Wen summoned the golden warrior to see how strong its defense was. However, what surprised Zhou Wen was that the golden bell and invulnerable golden body, along with the augmentation of blessed combat runes, allowed it to withstand one blow of the Torch Dragon's tail. Its body crashed into the palace wall, but it wasn't seriously injured. The seemingly ordinary golden warrior was finally killed after withstanding torch dragons for attacks. This was already out of Zhou Wen's expectations. Among epic companion beasts, there weren't many who could withstand a single strike from Torch Dragon. For a golden warrior to withstand 4 strikes was already shocking. Unfortunately, the golden warrior could not block bright torch vision world. This golden warrior looks like an ordinary golden warrior, but its strength far exceeds that of a golden warrior. If an ordinary person were to treat it as a golden warrior, they would probably suffer terribly. That's an advantage. Zhou Wen thought to himself, if he were to find a publicly recognized weak companion beast in the future and combine all sorts of powerful skills with it. This way, he would be able to catch any enemy off guard. Upon thinking of a weak companion beast, Zhou Wen thought of the lucky baby tiger. This fellow was indeed the weakest among epics. Apart from its luck stat, it was completely useless. I'll try to fuse a powerful baby tiger when I get another baby tiger. Zhou Wen summoned the golden warrior and wore it as a golden soft armor. The moment he wore it, he realized something different. The soft armor that a typical golden warrior transformed into was made of gold threads. It was pure gold without any patterns. Zhou Wen's soft armor had shimmering blessed combat runes on it, making it look extremely dazzling. Zhou Wen didn't like being dazzling because that would make him a striking target. The golden warrior transforms into soft armor. I can still wear armor outside. I can use the runic heavy armored warrior as the main ingredient and a golden warrior companion egg as a supplementary ingredient to form a runic heavy armored warrior with a golden body life providence. Zhou Wen did as the idea came to him. Runic heavy armored warriors and golden warrior weren't difficult to kill, but something went wrong when he fused them. After the two were combined, the runic heavy armored warrior did not obtain the golden warrior's life providence. It was still his original life providence, but he had an additional skill. After a few tries, the results were all different. Sometimes there were more skills and sometimes there were fewer. Only on the 3rd time did he obtain a runic heavy armored warrior with the golden body life providence and blessed combat runes life soul. However, that runic heavy armored warrior did not even have a single skill. Chapter 507, Black Cube. While Zhou Wen was grinding the dungeons, something strange happened in Luoyang City. A crossroad in the city was blocked by a huge black cube. The black cube was about 50 meters long. It did not look like metal, but it did not look like stone or plastic either. Strangely, no one knew when the black cube appeared. And Sheng, who was in charge of investigating the matter, looked at the nearby surveillance cameras and realized that the black cube had appeared out of thin air. It didn't exist on the video, then it appeared in the next second. Such a strange matter was likely related to dimensional creatures. In order to prevent any accidents, and Sheng mobilized many experts from the Sunset Army to research how to take away or destroy the black cube. However, they tried many methods to no avail. They were unable to move the black cube away, nor were they able to damage it. Even the strongest destructive weapon and essence energy skill that they could muster failed to damage the black cube one bit. Some people dug up the concrete surface underneath the black cube and used some tools to move it away. However, they soon discovered that the black cube was actually suspended in midair. After the ground was dug open, it did not affect it at all, and it still remained in position. Although the black cube didn't pose any threat, and Sheng still made preparations for the worst. He evacuated the nearby residents and temporarily isolated the area. He sent troops to guard it to prevent any accidents. In less than 2 days, and Sheng received plenty of shocking updates. It wasn't just Luoyang. Many cities in the Federation's 4 major districts had similar black cubes. Now, everyone was studying the black cube. Up to now, no one had been able to determine what it was, nor could anyone destroy or move it. Many people were worried like in Sheng. The black cube was like a ticking time bomb in the city. who knew when it would cause a terrifying disaster. Strange phenomena are happening rather frequently. It looks like the days ahead will become more and more unpeaceful. And Sheng sighed. And Tianzuo was reading the intelligence gathered from all over the world. Even the cities of the 6 major families had black cubes. Furthermore, the 6 families were helpless against them. The 6 families had sent out mythical companion beasts to destroy or figure out what the black cube was, but the outcome wasn't promising. The strength of mythical companion beasts was still unable to harm the black cubes. And Tianzuo frowned when he read the intelligence. Black cubes had appeared all over the world. This was clearly unusual. Did you notice that these black cubes only appear in areas where humans gather? There are no black cubes in the wilderness or dimensional zones, and Tianzuo said. You suspect that this is a conspiracy against humans. And Sheng immediately understood what Tianzuo was getting at. Although I don't wish to see such a thing happen, the current phenomana's analysis suggests that the black cubes are targeted at humans, and Tianzuo said with a heavy expression. We shall handle it, come what may. Overseer, when have you ever been afraid of anything? And Sheng deliberately said in a relaxed tone. And Tianzuo smiled and stopped talking about the matter. He then asked Sheng, how's the progress at Zhuolu? There's no progress. After a long analysis, the experts have roughly guessed that the snake is the legendary torch dragon. The other mythical creature is Xianxia, one of the 4 mythical ferocious beasts. Apart from that, there's no progress. Unless a mythical power involves itself in this matter, it's impossible to make progress in the temple, and Sheng said. How's the mood of the person at home? And Tianzuo paused before asking again. Same as usual. She eats whatever she likes and buys whatever she likes. However, I can tell that she can't let this matter rest, and Sheng said. After a long silence, and Tianzuo suddenly said, how long will it take for a return trip to Zhuolu? And Sheng's expression changed drastically when he heard that. Overseer, you absolutely can't do that. You definitely can't go to Zhuolu. The strength of Torch Dragon and Xianxia is still unknown. We haven't even figured out what abilities they have. It's too dangerous for you to go like this. If we don't figure out if Grandpa is in the temple, the person at home will probably not be at ease, said Tianzuo. Overseer, if you were to perish in there, Madam wouldn't just be sad. Furthermore, there's the bizarre black cube. A huge problem might happen at any time. This place needs you, and Sheng said solemnly. And Tianzuo's expression changed when he heard that. After a long while, he sighed and said, Sheng, in the past, we only wanted to have the Yin family and Luoyang completely in our control. At that time, we thought that we could no longer have any reservations and do whatever we wanted. Now that we have truly become the masters of this place, we realize that the matters to take into consideration have increased. And Sheng looked at Tianzuo and said seriously, the lesser the burden, the fewer the matters to consider. Overseer, you're burdened by too many things. Perhaps. And Tianzuo stood up and walked to the window. He looked at the black cube on the city streets as his expression turned more complicated. Zhou Wen had fused multiple pets without obtaining a runic heavy armored warrior that he was satisfied with. All he could do was use the unskilled runic heavy armored warrior for the time being. Old Zhu, have you heard? A mysterious cube appeared on the streets in the city. Lai Xuan said mysteriously when he came to Zhou Wen. What mysterious cube? Zhou Wen had been focused on grinding dungeons recently. Apart from sending breakfast to Wang Lu, he hadn't gone out, nor had anyone told him. You don't know about it. Lai Xuan recounted the mysterious appearance of the black cube. It's not just our Luoyang. I heard that the same black cube has appeared all over the world. However, no one knows what it is. Zhou Wen couldn't help but frown when he heard that. He was also worried. If the black cubes contained a few mythical creatures, the consequences would be unimaginable. Like Xuan and Zhu Wen chatted for a while before he suddenly recalled something. He said to Zhou Wen with a smile, "Gu Dian looks like a ruthless character, but he's actually quite timid." "Why do you say that?" Zhou Wen asked curiously. "Didn't we organize an activity previously and got Gu Dian to come with us? Fang Ruoxi brought her pet cat over. That pet cat wasn't afraid of Gu Dian's ferocious appearance and even jumped onto him. When he saw the cat, the usually ferocious Gu Dian ended up sitting on the ground in fright. His legs were so weak that he couldn't even stand up. He just sat and crawled backward as though he was afraid that the cat would eat him. Don't you think it's funny? That kid usually looks quite manly. I never expected him to be so timid." Lai Xuan didn't notice Zhou Wen's odd expression when he spoke. Chapter 508, The Thirch's Hin. After Lai Xuan left, Zhou Wen went online to investigate the news regarding the Black Cube. As the matter was huge news, and the cubes had appeared in many places, it was impossible to completely conceal the matter. Therefore, many places did an exposé. There were also many clear pictures of it. One could not tell anything from the pictures. It was just a black cube. What exactly is this? I wonder if the Thirch knows what it is. Zhou Wen was considering how to ask the Thirch when he suddenly received a message from her. "Did a black cube appear in the place where you are now?" Zhou Wen hurriedly replied when he saw the Thirch mention this matter herself. "Yes, a lot of them suddenly appeared in the world. I wonder what it is. If I were you, I would take my mythical companion beasts to the cube," the Thirch replied. "How can I have mythical companion beasts?" Zhou Wen denied. "What's on your ear? Don't tell me that's an earring you bought online," the Thirch said. "What do I do with the mythical companion beast there? What is that black cube?" Zhou Wen never expected the Thirch to recognize Truth Listener. However, he wasn't surprised. He was only curious. The Thirch clearly knew what the black cube was. "I don't wish to tell you what it is, but as long as you take a mythical companion beast over, there will definitely be benefits. Do you dare to go?" Before long, the Thirch sent a message. Zhou Wen frowned when he saw that. He didn't know what the Thirch was up to. He didn't trust the Thirch at all, afraid that she would scheme against him. The 6 families have already taken their mythical companion beasts over, but they didn't receive any benefits. Zhou Wen replied without saying if he wanted to go. "How can those ordinary people know of its benefits? With my guidance, naturally, it'll be different." The Thirch immediately sent another message. "After you find the black cube, take a mythical companion beast to the top of it. In the middle of the cube, there's a circular dot. Get your mythical companion beast to stand there and release all its essence energy, and send it inside the dot. Remember, it can only be a mythical companion beast. Essence energy must be injected into the dot, or you will bear the consequences." "What will happen after the cube is opened?" Zhou Wen asked. "Why don't you give it a try yourself? If you don't have the guts, just wait for others to activate the cube. After all, if you don't take the huge benefits, there are plenty of people who will." The Thirch gave one final reply before she ignored Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen was immediately put in a difficult spot. The Thirch was clearly teasing him. She deliberately didn't mention what the black cube was to make him feel conflicted. "This really makes me doubt life. You underestimate me too much." Zhou Wen packed his things and planned on taking a look at the black cube. Zhou Wen planned on using his phone to take a picture. The black cube was definitely something from a different dimension. Perhaps the mysterious phone would react to it. It wouldn't be too late to decide if he should try using the Thirch's method. Zhou Wen didn't dare go out in the open. He took advantage of the night to sneak to the spot where he discovered the black cube. There was an army stationed there, but it was mainly to prevent any anomalies from happening to the black cube. They didn't forbid humans from approaching, so it wasn't difficult to get close. Zhou Wen arrived at the roof of a nearby building, which was already very close to the black cube. Standing at the edge of the building, He was only about 10 meters away from the corner of the black cube. Although it was nighttime, with Zhou Wen's eyesight, he could see it clearly, but he couldn't tell what material it was. It didn't look like metal or stone, nor did it look like a horn or bone. Instead, it looked like some man-made material. What is this? I hope the mysterious phone can divulge something. Zhou Wen held the mysterious phone and aimed it at the black cube. However, it left Zhou Wen somewhat disappointed. The mysterious phone didn't do a thing or lock onto it. It clearly wasn't interested in the black cube. Zhou Wen was put in a difficult spot. The Theurge had said that there were great benefits, but what if she was lying to him? If he really did, as the Theurge said, it would be bad if he released a few demon monarch-level dimensional creatures. However, after careful thought, Zhou Wen felt that the Theurge didn't seem to have any reason to do so. If the Theurge really wanted to mess with him, she could just make a wish. There was no need to go through so much trouble to trick him into coming here. Furthermore, he had not sent the things that the Theurge had asked him to buy. If he were to release a few terrifying creatures and ended up dying, who would deliver the items to her? Although the Theurge said it so easily as though she could find someone to deliver things to her at any time, how many humans dared to go to Chess Mountain? There were even fewer who dared to enter Chess Mountain to take the Void Flower. Zhou Wen suspected that there was only one pot of Void Flower in Chess Mountain. After some thought, he believed that the Theurge wouldn't let him die so easily, so he decided to give it a try. Zhou Wen was already prepared. He wore the most ordinary heavy armor of the runic heavy-armored warrior. The armor could envelop his entire body. Furthermore, it was rather common in the Peninsula of Gods. Even if he was discovered, it wouldn't be easy to find out who he was. The garrison troops were all around the cube, and there wasn't anyone above. Taking advantage of the darkness, Zhou Wen pushed ghost steps to the extreme. He traversed more than 10 meters like black smoke and landed on the black cube without anyone noticing. After stepping onto the black cube, nothing abnormal happened. Only then did Zhou Wen heave a sigh of relief and silently walk towards the center. At the center, Zhou Wen indeed discovered the circle the Theurge mentioned. The black cube was about 50 meters in length, but the circle was only the size of a palm. Furthermore, it was only a shallow round mark. If Zhou Wen didn't know that it was useful, he wouldn't have noticed it. Which mythical companion beast should I use to give it a try? Zhou Wen thought to himself. Excluding Tyrant Behemoth who was evolving, Zhou Wen still had 4 mythical pets: Truth Listener, Banana Fairy, Demonic Neonate, and 6-Winged. However, the first 3 hadn't reached the mythical stage yet. The real mythical stage was 6-Winged. After sizing up his surroundings and seeing that there wasn't anyone above him, he believed that even if he summoned 6-Winged, no one would see him. Zhou Wen decided to summon 6-Winged. After all, if anything were to happen, 6-Winged was at the mythical stage. It should be able to deal with the problem, but Truth Listener and Banana Fairy might be instantly killed. Chapter 509, Famous in the Federation. When 6-Winged was summoned by Zhou Wen, its huge body stood on the cube, but it wasn't too obvious. However, its claws were a little too big. Its claws covered the tiny circle completely when pressed against it. As it was several times bigger than the circle, Zhou Wen didn't know if this would work. I'll give it a try. Zhou Wen was very careful. He didn't let the 6-Winged dragon immediately attempt it. He only made it stand there and left. He returned to the top of the building beside him, before letting the 6-Winged guardian dragon inject its essence energy into the circle. If anything were to happen, he could immediately retrieve the 6-Winged guardian dragon and escape. Although he felt that it was unlikely that the Theurge would harm him, he still had to be careful. The 6-Winged guardian dragon followed Zhou Wen's orders and pressed its paw on the circle, injecting its essence energy into it. Although Zhou Wen was mentally prepared, he was still alarmed the moment the 6-Winged guardian dragon injected essence energy. The entire black cube instantly lit up, illuminating the surroundings. Zhou Wen was alarmed. He wanted to retrieve the six-winged guardian dragon, but he realized that the six-winged guardian dragon seemed to have been sucked into the black cube, preventing him from retrieving it. Zhou Wen's expression changed drastically when he saw the black cube's situation. It was no longer a black cube. It was like a huge six-sided screen. The four sides of the screen were glowing brightly, resembling liquid crystal displays. There were even images on it. The images weren't anything else but the six-winged guardian dragon that was standing on the cube. Furthermore, it was the six-winged guardian dragon after it released its life soul. One could imagine the scene. The four sides of the screen were all 50 meters long and were many times clearer than any 4K high-definition screen. Even the tiny dark lines on the scales of the six-winged guardian dragon could be seen clearly. The 50-meter-tall screen could be seen more than 10 kilometers away. Anyone who had not slept and was outside could see the image on the cube from all directions. Furthermore, the top of the cube was also glowing brightly, illuminating the six-winged dragon like a statue. It would be impossible not to see it. Now, Zhou Wen was secretly glad that he wasn't standing on top. Otherwise, he would really be famous. The military was alarmed, likewise for the reporters and gossip mongers. Phones rang everywhere. In just 2 to 3 minutes, the quiet night suddenly became lively. People rushed to the streets or ran to the high buildings and looked in the direction of the cube. Dear viewers, this is news today. I'm reporter Xianxia. I'm putting my life at risk going live here at the Black Cube, which appeared a few days ago. Just a minute ago, it suddenly lit up. We can see that the side of the cube has become an ultra-high-definition big screen. And on the cube, there's a terrifying dimensional creature. It looks like it's a legendary dragon from the West District. Furthermore, it has 6 wings, and its body is burning with terrifying black flames. It's very likely to have escaped from the cube. Will such a terrifying creature bring great disaster to our city? The Theurge tricked me again. Zhou Wen was somewhat dumbfounded. He had been trying to retrieve the 6-winged dragon, but he couldn't. The army had already started advancing, and the sound of police sirens could be heard everywhere. Clearly, they were rushing over. Now, 6-winged guardian dragon is completely famous. I'm afraid that everyone in Luoyang knows about it. Zhou Wen attempted to retrieve the 6-winged guardian dragon time and time again, but he failed. Unfortunately, Zhou Wen thought about things too simply. It wasn't just known by everyone in Luoyang. In fact, the moment the 6-winged guardian dragon activated the black cube, the black cubes around the world lit up and displayed the projection of the 6-winged guardian dragon. High-level officials and ordinary people in the various cities of the Federation all looked at the magnificent 6-winged guardian dragon from every angle. Even those who didn't see the cube screen with their own eyes would have definitely seen all kinds of headlines. Without a doubt, the 6-winged guardian dragon and the cube made the headlines at the same time. It just took a few minutes. Everyone in the world now knew that there was such a 6-winged guardian dragon. Just as Zhou Wen was feeling anxious, he saw the cube screen change again. The projection of the 6-winged guardian dragon vanished, turning into a ranking with a ranking of 1 to 100. However, the other rankings were all empty. Only the name of the 6-winged guardian dragon appeared at first place. It gave off a feeling of invincibility. Everyone in the Federation looked at the lone name on the cube. No one knew what was happening or what it represented. What the hell is this? Zhou Wen was equally puzzled, but he saw that the 6-winged guardian dragon's body seemed to have undergone some minute changes amidst the light. After 3 minutes, the military and media helicopters rushed over, and the 6-winged guardian dragon's glow disappeared. Zhou Wen, who had been trying to retrieve the 6-winged guardian dragon, finally managed to retrieve it. The 6-winged guardian dragon vanished, and the radiant cube dimmed, turning pure black again. Zhou Wen didn't hesitate any further as he escaped stealthily. Now, Luoyang was in chaos. People were everywhere on the streets and upstairs. All sorts of vehicles and helicopters were everywhere, but no one noticed Zhou Wen. When Zhou Wen left, he saw the car and Sheng usually drove. Clearly, he had rushed over as well, but he didn't know if Xianxia was sitting inside. Beep, 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 beep. Zhou Wen was on his way back when he heard a message from his phone. He opened it and saw that it was from the Theurge. I never expected you to have a real mythical companion beast. I've underestimated you. Not bad, not bad. That's not my companion beast. Zhou Wen held back his frustration and denied. The Theurge did not seem to believe him at all. She sent another message. I didn't lie to you. Take a closer look at your six-winged guardian dragon and see if it has changed. There will be a surprise. I already said that it's not my companion beast. Zhou Wen was slightly taken aback when he heard that. He sent a message to the Theurge before taking out his mysterious phone to check the information on the six-winged guardian dragon. With a single glance, he discovered that the information on the six-winged guardian dragon had indeed undergone a huge change. He took a closer look at the data and was pleasantly surprised. Chapter 510, Life Protection. Six-winged guardian dragon, mythical. Life Providence, life guardian dragon. Life Soul, wings of black flame. Wheel of Destiny, the last life guardian. Strength, 80. Speed, 80. Constitution, 80. Essence Energy, 80. Talent Skill, Sanctification, Poison Breath, Dragon's Rage, Hell Demonic Flame, Six-Wing Slash. Companion Form, Holy Flaming Dragon Wings. Zhou Wen remembered that the six-winged guardian dragon stats were around 60, but now all of them had become 80. According to the advancement of his companion beasts, the top mythical creatures likely had 81 stat points. Now that the six-winged guardian dragon stats had reached 80, it could be considered top-notch. The Life Providence and Wheel of Destiny had slight changes. He had no idea what the word life meant, but he believed that it couldn't be a bad thing. It gained an additional sanctification skill, making it have 5 skills. It was an obvious upgrade. The demonic flaming dragon wings had been upgraded into holy flaming dragon wings as well. How is it? Are you surprised? The Theurge sent another message. Seeing that the Theurge had already determined that the six-winged guardian dragon was his companion beast, he tacitly acknowledged the truth. He asked, can a beast be strengthened as long as it's recognized by the black cube? Dream on. This is a reward for the first companion beast that enters the rankings. It happens only once. You lucked out big time. Soon, the Theurge sent another message. However, your six-winged dragon's potential isn't good. You should have just used that earring to receive the enhancement. It should have been able to advance to the mythical stage directly. Zhou Wen didn't regret not listening to the Theurge. Truth Listener's advancement to the mythical stage was indeed good, but Truth Listener was more inclined towards support abilities. What Zhou Wen needed now was actual combat strength. After the enhancement of the six-winged guardian dragon, its strength would likely increase significantly. It could play a bigger role when fighting Torch Dragon, boosting Zhou Wen's chances of killing Torch Dragon. Zhou Wen's phone rang again, but this time it wasn't the Theurge, but a call from Sheng. And Sheng and Zhou Wen killed the six-winged guardian dragon together. He also knew that Zhou Wen had lured Medusa to fight the six-winged guardian dragon. Therefore, he immediately guessed that the six-winged guardian dragon was Zhou Wen's. Young Master Wen, what was the situation with the black cube? And Sheng didn't beat about the bush with Zhou Wen and directly got straight to the point. Zhou Wen recounted what he knew, but he skipped the matter regarding the Theurge. You mean to say that the cube is actually a ranking for companion beasts? And Sheng thought and asked after hearing that. From the looks of it, it's true. However, we can't rule out the possibility that there's something else in the black cube. Otherwise, the six-winged guardian dragon wouldn't have been strengthened, Zhou Wen said. However, and Sheng's tone became much more relaxed. That's good then. The overseer has been constantly worried about the cube. From the looks of it, it shouldn't pose a threat anytime soon. By the way, congratulations, young Master Wen. You are now the third person in Luoyang to possess a mythical creature. And Sheng sighed. Back when you first came to Luoyang, you were only at the mortal stage. In less than a year, you even have a mythical companion beast. In terms of speed, even the geniuses of the six families aren't as fast as you. Who are the other two? Zhou Wen asked. Naturally, it's Chancellor Leng and the Overseer. If they weren't here, how could the Yen family of Luoyang continue standing, to the point of the six families fearing them? And Sheng said with a smile. Zhou Wen didn't ask what their companion beasts were. They were the secrets and trump cards of everyone. After returning to his dorm, Zhou Wen couldn't wait to summon the six-winged guardian dragon in its companion form. 6 fiery dragon wings appeared behind him, but they weren't black anymore. Instead, they were pure white. They looked much prettier, but he didn't know if there were any changes to their effects. After dispelling the dragon wings, Zhou Wen took out his phone and entered the Zhualu Instance Dungeon. He wanted to try and see if the six-winged guardian dragon could fight Xianxia. Torch Dragon had bright torch vision world, which ignored strength and speed. However, Xianxia was a dimensional creature that relied on strength and speed. Now that the six-winged guardian dragon's prowess had greatly increased, it might perhaps put up a fight with Xianxia. Taking the six-winged guardian dragon to the temple where Xianxia was, the six-winged guardian dragon's originally black body and wings turned white once it saw Xianxia. It became a white dragon, a likely manifestation of its additional sanctification skill. Even though the six-winged dragon was in its sanctification state, its speed and strength were still inferior to Xianxia's. However, it could still barely put up a fight. It was unlike before, when it was completely thrashed with no ability to resist at all. The stronger the six-winged guardian dragon was, the more Zhou Wen realized how terrifying Xianxia was. Such a powerful six-winged guardian dragon was actually suppressed by Xianxia. The six-winged guardian dragon was barely able to put up a fight and didn't die instantaneously. However, the blood-colored avatar wasn't that lucky. With Xianxia suddenly attacking it, Zhou Wen controlled the blood-colored avatar to dodge twice before it was smacked to death by Xianxia's claw. Something strange happened. The blood-colored avatar was clearly hit, but it didn't die. Instead, the six-winged guardian dragon's body suddenly exploded as it died for no reason. With the death of the six-winged guardian dragon, the blood-colored avatar couldn't last much longer before being killed by Xianxia. Could it be that the last life guardian is the miraculous ability to take the master's place in death? Zhou Wen guessed as he immediately restarted the dungeon and experimented a few more times. Just as Zhou Wen had guessed, as long as the six-winged guardian dragon was still alive, it could help him withstand a single death. Furthermore, this ability could also be used even while it was in its dragon wings form. This enhancement is just too good. Zhou Wen increasingly felt that his choice of doing the enhancement was right. This way, he would have an additional life. Even if he were to die in the future, the six-winged guardian dragon could still protect him once. This was even more useful than any mythical creature. After all, he only had one life. No matter how many mythical creatures he had, they would be useless once Zhou Wen died. While Zhou Wen was studying the six-winged guardian dragon, the six families and some wealthy families were also studying the matter. People from the East and West District even began arguing. As the six-winged guardian dragon had appeared in Luoyang, the people of the East District naturally believed that it belonged to an expert in the East District. However, the West District people said that the six-winged guardian dragon was clearly a companion beast of the West District, one that wasn't available in the East District. So the owner of the six-winged guardian dragon was definitely a West District citizen who happened to be passing by Luoyang. The various large families were also guessing who the owner of the six-winged guardian dragon was. Their main suspects were naturally Leng Zheng and Tianzuo. However, after many probes and investigations, both of them denied it. At the same time, the six families were not idle. They were all researching how the six-winged guardian dragon had appeared on the cube and what its purpose was. You mean that the mythical six-winged guardian dragon is Zhou Wen's? Inside the N family, and Tianzuo's expression changed when he heard Sheng's report. Chapter 511, Fighting Torch Dragon Again. Yes. Back then, young Master Wen, Zhang Yuzhai, and I killed a six-winged guardian dragon together. However, it didn't drop a companion egg. Later on, young Master Wen lured Medusa to fight with the six-winged guardian dragon. The outcome resulted in a companion egg. Now that the six-winged guardian dragon has been strengthened, its combat strength should be considered high among mythical creatures, and Sheng said. That's not necessarily the case. Wild mythical companion beasts are ultimately inferior to those you nurture, said Tianzuo. And Sheng didn't refute him and only said with a smile, Overseer, you are right. However, no matter what, that's a powerful mythical creature. With it being young Master Wen's, he can be considered a cornerstone of our Luoyang city. When did you degenerate to the point of relying on a student? When did our Luoyang city degenerate to the point of relying on a student as a cornerstone? And Tianzuo glared at Sheng. There's nothing I can do about that. I also want to be a cornerstone, but I don't have a mythical pet, and Sheng said as he threw up his hands. What's the rush? Isn't our plan at White Cloud Mountain underway? And Tianzuo said. And Sheng replied, we still don't know if we can kill that mythical creature on White Cloud Mountain. Even if we can kill it, it might not drop a companion egg. You killed 3 or 4 mythical creatures previously, but none of them dropped a companion egg. That's because we were unlucky. The chance of mythical creatures dropping companion eggs is about 1/3. It should drop one this time. And Tianzuo glared at him and continued, in short, we used to rely on ourselves. We rely on ourselves now. It will be the same in the future. Don't place your hopes on others. Yes, Overseer. And Sheng paused before asking, what if young Master Wen wants to go to Zhuelu? Should I stop him? Does he have the guts? The mythical creatures at Zhuelu are not something ordinary mythical companion beasts can match. I don't think he has the guts to go. To obtain a six-winged guardian dragon is only his luck. You really expect him to kill mythical creatures, said Tianzuo. Zhou Wen was reading the news in his dorm. Many of the media outlets he saw on his phone listed the appearance of the six-winged guardian dragon and the cube's rankings as the headlines. The entire Federation probably knew about the six-winged guardian dragon by now. I wonder what use is a companion beast's ranking. Zhou Wen thought to himself. The Theurch didn't mention what the ranking was for, and Zhou Wen didn't figure out what it could be used for. However, he believed that it wasn't that simple. Black cubes had appeared all over the world. Was such a huge formation just to create a useless ranking? Zhou Wen felt that the terrifying existences in the dimensional zones weren't that bored. The ranking definitely had some use, but he didn't know what it was yet. Zhou Wen didn't grind dungeons today. He was considering how he could kill Xianxia or Torch Dragon. The six-winged guardian dragon could only just fight Xianxia, but Zhou Wen wasn't strong enough. He couldn't dodge Xianxia's attack, and instead became a burden. Every time Xianxia killed the blood-colored avatar, it was useless no matter how strong the six-winged guardian dragon was. If he wanted to kill Torch Dragon, he would have to get over the bright Torch Vision world. The six-winged guardian dragon could already face Torch Dragon head-on, but it could not block the bright Torch Vision world. It's still harder to kill Xianxia. I can only continue to think of something regarding Torch Dragon. Zhou Wen thought for a long time before he came up with a method to kill Torch Dragon. Torch Dragon's speed was much slower than Xianxia's. After the strengthening of the six-winged guardian dragon, its speed had already surpassed Torch Dragon's by a hair's breadth. It was only because of bright Torch Vision World that it could not defeat Torch Dragon. The crystal mirror Zhou Wen had obtained could restrain Torch Dragon, but it was too small. At most, it could only block his face. Furthermore, Torch Dragon's eyes were too wide, as if they were growing on both sides. It was impossible to use the crystal mirror to block his vision. The size of the crystal mirror could only block one of its eyes at most. After some thought, there was only one way to deal with Torch Dragon. That was to transform six-winged into dragon wings to boost Zhou Wen's flying speed. Then, he could use his movement techniques and speed to dodge the Torch Dragon's bright Torch Vision World gaze, preventing it from seeing him. Of course, it was impossible to completely dodge it. After all, no matter how fast Zhou Wen was, it was impossible for Torch Dragon to completely miss him. However, with the crystal mirror, it shouldn't be difficult to block one angle of its vision. In that case, it gave Zhou Wen enough space. However, it also required repeated experiments in combat. It wasn't something he could do just by theorizing it. Plans were one thing, but there were often many problems when executing them. He needed to repeatedly test them. Now, the last problem is how to kill Torch Dragon. After so many battles with Torch Dragon, Zhou Wen realized that its body was even more powerful than the six-winged guardian dragons. The six-winged guardian dragon's attack could only damage its scales. A small number of attacks would not be of much use. The effects of Overlord Sword's sword beam wasn't too obvious. After some thought, Zhou Wen decided to rely on the Poison Dragon Palm, or Demonic Neonate's ancient sword, to sneak an attack on Torch Dragon. After figuring out the steps to kill Torch Dragon, Zhou Wen entered the temple again. Before he went to Torch Dragon, he first put on the soft armor formed by the epic Golden Warrior and the heavy armor formed by the runic Heavy Armored Warrior. The six-winged guardian dragon appeared behind him in the form of dragon wings. He wore the Truth Listener earring on his ear, holding the Overlord sword in one hand and the banana fan in the other. At the same time, he summoned Demonic Neonate and got her to lie on the blood-colored avatar's back. Her mission was to constantly search for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. Now, the blood-colored avatar was wearing heavy armor with black magma patterns. It had 3 pairs of holy dragon wings on its back. It had a huge sword in one hand and a banana fan in the other. It looked odd, but it also gave off a powerful feeling. However, Demonic Neonate, who was lying on its back, instantly reduced that domineering and powerful feeling to only about 30%. In general, it felt like a powerful male nanny. Taking a deep breath, Zhou Wen opened the temple and sent the blood-colored avatar charging in. Torch Dragon immediately saw him and spat out a mouthful of black smoke. It churned towards the blood-colored avatar like a tidal wave. After fanning the banana fan a few times, the Grand Yin Wind immediately sent the black smoke back. Without waiting for Torch Dragon to react, the 6 dragon wings on the blood-colored avatar's back flapped. Immediately, the blood-colored avatar's body flashed behind Torch Dragon like a phantom and slashed at Torch Dragon's neck, domineeringly. The sword beam spun violently as it slashed at Torch Dragon like a wheel of light. Torch Dragon's reaction wasn't slow either. It turned its head to look at the sword beam as a flame-like beam shot out from its eyes, shattering it. At the same time, a lash of its gigantic tail left behind afterimages as it struck the blood-colored avatar in midair. Its speed was unbelievable. The dragon wings flapped as he moved in midair with ghost steps, dodging Torch Dragon's tail attack. At the same time, Overlord Sword slashed out once again, slashing at Torch Dragon's vital point. Chapter 512, The Thirch's Treasure Trove. Zhou Wen's figure flashed like a phantom as he dodged left and right. He kept slashing out sword beams, but they were all stopped by Torch Dragon. He ultimately failed to injure it. Zhou Wen wasn't in a rush. Instead, Torch Dragon was somewhat impatient. Its body emitted waves of energy that radiated through the entire palace, leaving Zhou Wen with no room to dodge. Holding the Overlord's sword tightly, he unleashed Transcendent Flying Immortal in passing. Sword beams slashed violently and collided with the ripples, as both sword beams and ripples shattered. There were just too many ripples, and Transcendent Flying Immortal couldn't dispatch all of them. When the ripples struck Zhou Wen's body, they immediately sent him flying as he slammed into a metal pillar in the palace. Zhou Wen realized that there were many holes in his armor, but his body wasn't injured. After the first layer of his heavy armor was penetrated by the ripples, the soft armor inside suffered some damage, but it wasn't completely penetrated. This armor and soft armor are indeed useful. Zhou Wen couldn't help but be overjoyed. The hard and soft double armor was actually able to withstand Torch Dragon's attack. It only caused him to receive some shock damage. This was much better than he had expected. When Torch Dragon saw that the blood-colored avatar wasn't dead, its eyes immediately flashed. This was the precursor to using Bright Torch Vision World. Zhou Wen abruptly got to his feet and activated Ghost Steps once again. The 6 wings on his back flapped as he moved behind Torch Dragon. Torch Dragon quickly turned its head and looked in Zhou Wen's direction. Its eyes had already turned mirror-like. No matter how fast Zhou Wen's movement speed was, it wasn't as fast as its head turning. It was as though Zhou Wen's figure was about to be caught by the corner of its eye, when he threw the crystal mirror at Torch Dragon's eye whilst moving. He originally imagined that the crystal mirror could block Torch Dragon's line of sight, but to his surprise, Torch Dragon's cognitive abilities suddenly sped up. The crystal mirror's trajectory immediately deviated from its eye. The blood-colored avatar was immediately reflected in its eye, and the game screen turned black. Even the 6-winged Guardian Dragon's Life Guardian protection was useless. The 6-winged Guardian Dragon exploded first before the blood-colored avatar died. Life Guardian protection was only a transfer of damage. If Zhou Wen was injured, it would be transferred to it, but there was no way for him to leave the Bright Torch Vision World. From the looks of it, I still need more practice to block Bright Torch Vision World. Zhou Wen wasn't discouraged as he continued grinding by dripping his blood and respawning. He had long expected that it was impossible to succeed in one attempt. It was unknown how many tens of thousands of failure scientists had to undergo before they could produce results. What Zhou Wen was doing was equivalent to experimenting. What he wanted wasn't luck, but 100% chance of killing Torch Dragon. Without sufficient confidence, Zhou Wen wouldn't go to the temple in reality. That would be harming himself and others. Before fighting Torch Dragon, Zhou Wen would first grind the rare dimensional creatures, Sun Beast, Baby Tiger, Elegant Emperor's Avatar Puppet, and so on. If a companion egg dropped, it would definitely be useful for future fusion. Zhou Wen had a nagging feeling that if he could combine rare life providences, life souls, and skills together, he might be able to form a pet that was even crazier than a mythical pet. However, the difficulty of fusion wasn't any easier than having a mythical pet drop. He would need countless attempts. On the dead man tree, the flower that Jock bloomed after his death finally withered and produced a tiny fruit. It was unknown how long it would take to ripen. Tyrant Behemoth remained in evolution. It looked like it needed more time to evolve to the mythical stage than it did when advancing to the epic stage. This fellow won't really become as big as a mountain after advancing to the mythical stage, right? Zhou Wen was secretly worried. If it was really that big, it wouldn't be able to enter many dimensional zones. Zhou Wen was still grinding dungeons one day when Lai Xuan sent the items that he had previously requested. Apart from one chemical, he had bought everything on the list. There wasn't much time left until the Thirch's deadline. After Lai Xuan left, Zhou Wen used the void flower to teleport the items over. Then, he sent the Thirch a message saying that the material she wanted wasn't easy to obtain and couldn't be bought in the nearby cities. If she really wanted it, she would have to wait for some time. A month should be enough, right? You must obtain that material, the Thirch replied. I spent a lot of money buying materials. I'm almost running out of money. Zhou Wen continued complaining. He wasn't trying to extort her, but he was afraid that the Thirch would think that it was easy for him to obtain these items. That would only serve to her, asking him for items every now and then. He didn't have the time to buy things for her. Are you planning on turning into a cat again? The skill crystal I gave you is a mythical skill crystal. There aren't many of those amongst you humans, right? You only bought those few items, and you are telling me that you have no money. You think I don't know the price? The Thirch's message quickly returned. Oh no. Zhou Wen still imagined that the Thirch was as easy to fool as before. He had forgotten that she could surf the internet. She probably had a better understanding of humans than Zhou Wen himself. Although a mythical skill crystal is precious, you know the situation of humans now. No one can use it, and there's no way to price it. It's really not easy to sell. The crystal is still in my hands. The money to buy these things came from my savings. I really don't have much left. Zhou Wen was certain that he wasn't wrong to say that there was no way to find the price of the mythical crystal online. That's true. You humans are too weak and can't use good stuff. But the worst things I have here are those. There's no lower-level trash. The Thirch's reply nearly made Zhou Wen, who was drinking water, choke. How many treasures are there in Chess Mountain? Mythic essence, energy, skill crystals are only trash. No, I have to think of a way to crack Chess Mountain in the future. Zhou Wen cursed inwardly. After obtaining Six-Winged, Zhou Wen did indeed have the right to challenge Chess Mountain in the game. Now, he likely had the strength to deal with the fake fairy in Deer Terrace Pavilion, but there wasn't just one fake fairy inside. If the 6 of them were to attack together, Zhou Wen didn't know if he could handle them. Now that he was focusing on Torch Dragon, he didn't plan on going just now. If it's not convenient for you to provide payment now, I'll just sell everything I have. I'll put it on the tab. Zhou Wen sent a message. There's no need. Aren't you in the city not far from Chess Mountain? I'll tell you a place. Go and look for it. You should be able to find something valuable. The Thirch was clearly not as petty as Zhou Wen. Chapter 513, White Cloud Mountain. Where is it? It can't be inside Chess Mountain, right? Zhou Wen asked warily. If the Thirch wanted him to enter Chess Mountain in reality, Zhou Wen wouldn't go no matter what. That place was a huge trap. Zhou Wen guessed that even if the 6 families took all their mythical companion beasts with them, they might not be able to conquer it. According to legend, Caoj was a place with numerous mythical creatures in ancient times. No one knew if those mythical creatures that had helped Caoj fight in the war remained inside. The 7 saints of Mount Mei, the 4 generals of the Mo family, and so on, were extremely terrifying existences even among mythical creatures. Killing a dragon was too easy. Zhou Wen guessed that if he encountered them, even with the 6-winged guardian dragon, he would probably be killed instantly. Don't worry. It's not in Chess Mountain. I've seen your present map. That place is in Funiu Mountain. Now, it should be called White Cloud Mountain. The Thirch seemed to have seen through Zhou Wen's thoughts. White Cloud Mountain is also a dimensional zone, right? Zhou Wen had heard of White Cloud Mountain before. White Cloud Mountain and Mount Leijun were part of the Funiu mountain range, but their positions were somewhat different. Also, the nature of the two was completely different. Mount Leijun was safer. As long as one didn't kill or step on any plants, one's life wouldn't be in danger. However, White Cloud Mountain was different. Ever since it transformed into a dimensional zone, the mountain range had been enveloped by clouds. It was faintly discernible like a divine mountain, Zhou Wen heard that only a few people who entered White Cloud Mountain were able to survive. Occasionally, there would be people who could survive, but they would die for no reason a few days later. According to the people who came out alive, it was very difficult to tell their bearings inside White Cloud Mountain's fog. Even companions that were inches away would disappear as they walked, never to be seen again alive. Not even their corpses were found. According to them, they also saw an immortal palace on White Cloud Mountain. That immortal palace wasn't built on the mountain, but in the clouds. Jade stones were the foundation, and golden stones were on top. There were fairies dancing in the air. Without exception, those who saw the immortal palace all died in the end. No one survived. Furthermore, when they died, their faces were filled with joy. Therefore, White Cloud Mountain was also nicknamed the Immortal Ascension Mountain. Anyone who went there would have their lives taken away by an immortal, and they would ascend to the immortal palace to enjoy life. Zhou Wen didn't know if they managed to enjoy life, but he didn't want to die. What valuable things can there be in a place that isn't a dimensional zone? On a peak on the southeast of White Cloud Mountain, there's a mysterious stone that looks like a rabbit. "The good stuff is beneath that mysterious stone," said the Theurge. "I heard that White Cloud Mountain is really terrifying. Everyone who goes there dies. I'm afraid that I won't be able to bring anything back alive," Zhou Wen said. "Anyway, I've already told you where the item is. It's up to you whether you want to go or not. No matter whether you want to go or not, don't tell me that you lack money in the future," the Theurge said. "Do you have a way to enter White Cloud Mountain?" Zhou Wen asked. "Close your eyes and enter without looking at anything. That way nothing will happen," the Theurge said. "But how can I find that mysterious rock with my eyes closed?" Zhou Wen asked. "Is that thing on your ear just for show? Whether you want to go or not, don't bother me." "I'm busy," the Theurge replied disdainfully. Zhou Wen was depressed. The Theurge even knew Truth Listener's ability. It looked like he couldn't fool her. Zhou Wen checked White Cloud Mountain's information online and found the place the Theurge had mentioned. That place was rather famous on White Cloud Mountain. When there wasn't any dimensionalization in the past, it was a scenic spot named Jade Rabbit's Lunar Prayer. Legend had it that Jade Rabbit had descended to the mortal world and gone to White Cloud Mountain to have fun. Due to the stunning scenery at White Cloud Mountain, Jade Rabbit forgot the time and missed its opportunity to return to the Moon Palace. It could only watch helplessly as the moon rose from the east, with it never returning. Thus, Jade Rabbit laid on the mountain peak and prayed to the east day after day, hoping that the Moon Palace fairy would come to take it back to the Moon Palace. It was only a legend. After the dimensionalization, no one knew what it had become, nor was it known if the Moon Rabbit stone was still there. The Theurge said that I'll be fine as long as I don't open my eyes. This is very beneficial to me. Zhou Wen considered visiting White Cloud Mountain. The Theurge had casually produced a mythical essence, energy skill crystal. Zhou Wen felt that it definitely wasn't an ordinary item if it managed to catch her eye and let her remember it. In any case, as he had nothing to do on campus, Zhou Wen decided to pay White Cloud Mountain a visit. After all, he could still game and grind dungeons along the way. It wouldn't affect anything. The chick and antelope had to be placed in Wang Lu's care once again. Although Zhou Wen wanted Lai Chuan to raise them, the fellow was cultivating so seriously that he far exceeded Zhou Wen's intensity. He had no time to take care of the two creatures. As for taking them to White Cloud Mountain, that was impossible. If the chick were to open its eyes and see the immortal palace, it would be dead. Zhou Wen was counting on it to become a fighter when it grew up. He couldn't let it take the risk so easily. How did little Feifei lose so much weight after you took care of it for 2 days? Did you torture it? Wang Lu rolled her eyes at Zhou Wen when she saw the thin chick. How would I dare mistreat it? I serve delicious food and drinks all day long. It's better than what I eat. Zhou Wen actually found it odd. The chick was magically thin. After making a trip to Mount Laojun, it lost weight the moment it returned. Zhou Wen suspected that the antelope was up to no good. Back when he was gaming in front of the wordless monument, the antelope had taken it to the top of Mount Laojun. It seemed to have lost weight after coming down. He had no idea what they did up there. You owe me a lot of lunches and dinners. If this continues, I'm afraid you won't be able to pay me back even after I graduate. Wang Lu seriously wrote down the foster care that Zhou Wen required from her in her diary so that she could settle scores with him. I'll pay you back slowly. I'll be able to pay it all back eventually. Zhou Wen had no choice. The two of them were dimensional creatures. He was worried that they might cause trouble if he let any ordinary person rear them. After returning to his dorm, Zhou Wen called in Sheng, asking him to help him apply for a leave of absence for a few days. If he left the school for a longer period of time, the procedures would be more complicated. Although White Cloud Mountain wasn't far away, he didn't know when he would come out once he entered the dimensional zone. No problem. I'll give you a pass. When you return, you can enter and leave the school freely. There's no need to go to the trouble of applying for a leave of absence every time, and Sheng said. There's such a pass. Zhou Wen was somewhat surprised. Generally, it's for postgraduate students. According to the rules, ordinary university students aren't allowed to have a pass. However, you are naturally an exception. By the way, young Master Wen, where are you planning to go this time? And Sheng asked. I want to visit White Cloud Mountain. Zhou Wen and Sheng had experienced life and death situations, so there was naturally no need to hide it. Chapter 514, Spatial Crystal. Why are you going to White Cloud Mountain? And Sheng was somewhat surprised. I heard that the dimensional zone there is quite interesting. I would like to pay a visit. Zhou Wen naturally couldn't say that he was going there to dig for treasure after hearing what the Thirch had to say. White Cloud Mountain is too dangerous. We've already been stationed there for a few years, but we still haven't been able to ascend the Jade Emperor Peak. If you really want to go to White Cloud Mountain, you have to remember that you mustn't open your eyes after entering. Otherwise, once you see a mirage like the Immortal Palace, even a mythical companion beast might not be able to save you, and Sheng said solemnly. Why can't I open my eyes? Zhou Wen already knew of this taboo, but he never expected Sheng and company to know about it. I don't know. It's just like small Buddha temple. They have all kinds of unreasonable things. As long as you open your eyes and see it, you will definitely die. There's no reason at all. And Sheng paused for a moment before saying, you must not go to Jade Emperor Peak either. Even if you close your eyes, you will still be injured by the strange forbidden power there. There will be no way out. I understand. I'm just paying a visit. I might not even enter the mountain. Zhou Wen asked for more details, before realizing that Sheng and company had a deep understanding of White Cloud Mountain. Apart from Jade Emperor Peak, they had basically figured everything out. Zhou Wen knew that sacrifices were inevitable to gain such a deep understanding of White Cloud Mountain. They weren't like Zhou Wen, who had the mysterious phone to explore without any scruples. Even if they were all epic experts, the strangeness of the dimensional zones was impossible to guard against. Once an unforeseen accident happened, epic experts would easily die as well. Zhou Wen planned on taking a look first. If he could find the tiny palm symbol, he wouldn't go up the mountain first. He could download White Cloud Mountain with the tiny palm symbol and use his phone to figure it out before heading up. With that said, Zhou Wen hesitated for a moment before asking, how's the progress on Jiulu? I knew that you would definitely have your sights on it after you obtained the six-winged guardian dragon. I can tell you with complete certainty that you can only die if you take the six-winged guardian dragon there. And Sheng told Zhou Wen some of the things they had recently discovered. The experts were actually able to determine that the mythical creatures in the temple were Torch Dragon and Xianxia. This surprised Zhou Wen. However, they could only determine their names. They had no means of conquering the temple. Their understanding of Torch Dragon and Xianxia was far inferior to Zhou Wen's. They couldn't even figure out what abilities Torch Dragon and Xianxia had. From the looks of it, I can only rely on myself on this trip to the temple, Zhou Wen thought. Since you want to go to White Cloud Mountain, wait another 2 days. I'll be going to White Cloud Mountain then. I'll take you along, and Sheng said. Zhou Wen wasn't in a hurry to go. He felt that going with Sheng was a good idea. After all, they had already explored the Jade Rabbit's lunar prayer. If he couldn't find the tiny palm symbol, it would be better for Sheng to take him up. It was much better than him going up alone and running around blindly. After making the arrangements with Sheng, the two ended the call. Zhou Wen picked up his phone and continued grinding the dungeons. They were leaving in 2 days, so he couldn't be bothered to collect the chick and antelope. After all, they were happy to be with Wang Lu. The food and drinks there were better than with Zhou Wen. After repeatedly grinding dungeons, Zhou Wen killed a large number of musical note sprites. Now, there were more than 1,000 of the 7 different musical note sprites. When summoned together, and under the command of the Golden Harp, the sound waves produced from their combined attacks could break through the defenses of the runic heavy armored warrior. But they were still far from being able to fight a mythical creature. Zhou Wen estimated that he needed at least tens of thousands of musical note sprites. Only then could the sound wave attacks produced be comparable to the strengthened 6-winged. Zhou Wen wasn't in a hurry. After all, he was here to grind the Sun Beast, so he could also grind the musical note sprites along the way. He obtained a few musical note sprite companion eggs on each trip. Unfortunately, in the music temple, the goldfish didn't have the luck attribute, so he could only have his luck boosted by the baby tiger. As usual, Zhou Wen came to the musical fountain square. To his surprise, he saw the golden harp again. He had been to the musical fountain square many times, but apart from the first time, he hadn't discovered the golden harp. Zhou Wen imagined that the golden harp wouldn't appear again, so he was quite surprised to see it again. Zhou Wen was overjoyed. He immediately ordered the 6-winged guardian dragon to charge forward. The golden harp used its powers to make the 100,000 musical note sprites release a sonic wave, forming a huge sound blast. However, the 6-winged guardian dragon was no longer the 6-winged guardian dragon from before. It unleashed its full strength. Its 6 wings appeared at the same time, and its body turned white. Its body forcefully broke through the sound blast and arrived in front of the golden harp. With a single slap, it shattered the golden harp. 6-winged has indeed become much stronger. Zhou Wen wasn't very happy. Even with more than 100,000 musical note sprites joining forces, they couldn't stop the 6-winged guardian dragon. If he wanted to form the army of the musical note sprites, he would probably have to obtain at least hundreds of thousands of them before they could play a decisive role in the battle with mythical creatures. The golden harp didn't drop a companion egg, but a rare spatial stat crystal appeared. It had a space attribute +3. This added another rare attribute to Zhou Wen. It was just that 3 points were not enough. In the next 2 days, Zhou Wen spent 2 days grinding dungeons at home. He had obtained quite a lot of runic heavy armored warrior and golden warriors, but the companion eggs of the baby tiger and the elegant emperor's avatar puppet never dropped. Zhou Wen could understand that it was rare for the baby tiger's companion egg to drop, but he never expected the elegant emperor's avatar puppet companion egg to be that difficult as well. Furthermore, skill crystals seldom dropped as well. Apart from Zhou Wen obtaining the substitute talisman skill for the first time, no other skill crystal dropped. Early in the morning, Sheng called to inform Zhou Wen that they would be heading to White Cloud Mountain. Zhou Wen packed his things, including the substitute talisman he had drawn. When he arrived outside the school and saw Sheng's car, he walked to the window and realized that Xianxia was sitting in the back seat. He couldn't help but be slightly taken aback. Why didn't Ah Sheng tell me that Tianzuo would be coming? Zhou Wen found it a little odd, but he couldn't say anything. All he could do was open the door to the front passenger seat and get in. Zhou Wen had sat in this car many times in the past, but today he found it odd. The atmosphere in the car just wasn't right. And Tianzuo's eyes were somewhat odd as well. Clearly, he didn't know that Zhou Wen was going to White Cloud Mountain as well. Chapter 515, Birth of the Game. Young Master Wen, we are going to White Cloud Mountain's Red Birch Forest to hunt a mythical creature. Are you interested in joining us? And Sheng asked as he drove. Hunt a mythical creature. Zhou Wen was somewhat surprised. This was the first time he had heard of anyone hunting mythical creatures. And Sheng said, "That's right. There's a strange mythical creature in Red Birch Forest. We've been investigating it for several years. We've already done most of the groundwork. We are quite confident this time. Since you're going to White Cloud Mountain, why don't you join us? Take it as gaining some experience." I'm fine with that. Zhou Wen trusted in Sheng very much. After all, they were hunting mythical creatures in real life. It was more dangerous, so they would definitely have done more preparatory work. They definitely wouldn't risk their lives. Furthermore, even Tianzuo was taking action this time, so there shouldn't be much of a problem. However, Zhou Wen didn't wish to have too much contact with Tianzuo. He felt that he and Tianzuo weren't the same types of people. And Sheng continued, I still don't know what that mythical creature in Red Birch Forest is called. We named it Love Letter. It's rather interesting. Overseer said that if a companion egg drops this time, it will belong to me. Perhaps I will have a mythical companion beast in the future. Love Letter. How can there be such a name? Zhou Wen was somewhat astonished. There's a story behind it. Legend has it that the bark of the red birch tree is very thin and easily removed. Furthermore, it's very beautiful. Some people will use the bark of the red birch tree to write love letters to their lover. Although the dimensional creature in Red Birch Forest doesn't look like a book, the skills it uses are related to words. It's rather difficult to deal with. It's unknown how many companion beasts have died in Red Birch Forest in the past few years, just to roughly understand its various skills. And Sheng explained quite a bit of the mythical creature's abilities before saying, however, even if we know its abilities, it's impossible to kill a mythical creature without the same powers at the mythical stage. Therefore, Overseer has to personally take action this time. Otherwise, I won't be able to handle it myself. If you go with me, I'll be even more at ease. It's a good thing that both experts from Luoyang will be helping me kill a dimensional creature. Zhou Wen really didn't wish to have any nice stories of him and Tianzuo, but he couldn't say anything uncultured. All he could do was remain silent. The mountain road is dangerous. Drive carefully. And Tianzuo, who was sitting behind with his eyes closed, said coldly. Yes, and Sheng replied. Indeed, he didn't dare say another word. He secretly winked at Zhou Wen before focusing on driving. Zhou Wen had no interest in speaking. Just as he was about to close his eyes to rest, he suddenly heard his phone ring. Seeing that it was Huang Jai who called, Zhou Wen answered the call. Zhou Wen, our game is done. Huang Jai's excited voice sounded. Even Sheng and Tianzuo heard it. After the trial run the previous time, Zhou Wen didn't have much anticipation for Huang Jai's game. However, he still acted interested and said, That's great. Can you send me a copy? I can't wait to try it. Of course. I've already posted it online to begin the closed beta test. Go download this website and give me some suggestions after you're done playing. Huang Jai quickly sent a website address to Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen opened the page and saw that it was a gaming website. It was filled with closed and open beta games. Their game was called Dimension. Zhou Wen saw the game at the top. It was not because Huang Jai spent money that pushed his ranking so high, but because Huang Jai had just uploaded it. That made it appear at the top. Zhou Wen hurriedly downloaded the game. Thankfully, this wasn't a dimensional zone, or there might not be a signal. They had just arrived in the suburbs, so the signal was pretty good. After a while, Zhou Wen finished downloading the game and launched it. He realized that, although the login interface was very simple, it wasn't bad. It looked rather good. After entering the game, Zhou Wen chose Tiger Cage Pass, which was the only option. When he entered the game, he couldn't help but be surprised. He had originally thought that the game Huang Jai had created was the standard 2D side-scrolling game. But now, it was completely different from when he trialed it. Even though it was a 2D side-scrolling game, both the NPCs and the details of the scenery had greatly improved. However, there were only two choices for characters, man or woman. After choosing a man, there was no skill selection interface like before. Instead, he entered a game tutorial interface. The tutorial introduced the game's operations and skill usage. Apart from the direction key, there were also 5 buttons in-game. Then, the direction key and the other 5 buttons could be used in different key combinations for different skills. There were 10 skills available in-game. After remembering the method to deliver an attack, he could use the skills he needed. It's done pretty well. Zhou Wen was pleasantly surprised. He tried the maneuvering, and it was surprisingly fluid. It was similar to the popular fighting games in the past. The controls and feedback were a rather good experience. After entering the game, Tiger Cage Pass became a black and white ink style. Demonic soldiers were the same style as well. It looked surprisingly immersive. Zhou Wen controlled the game character to kill the demonic soldiers in Tiger Cage Pass, and discovered that the various techniques and attacks of demonic soldiers were very similar to real ones. They were much more agile than when he tried the alpha. There was some difficulty. It's really not bad. Zhou Wen played for a while before becoming more and more surprised. This was far from what he had imagined. It was surprisingly good. Although playing games might not necessarily mean one could kill demonized soldiers, one could familiarize themselves with the various means of attack by the demonized soldiers in-game. They could learn how to deal with them when encountering them in real life. To rookies who had not entered Tiger Cage Pass, it was quite helpful. It was much better than learning from videos. Zhou Wen stormed through the game and killed quite a number of demonized soldiers. The controls weren't a problem for him. He only took a brief look at them before he was able to cast all sorts of skills smoothly. Killing demonized soldiers was very easy. Soon, Zhou Wen discovered the mini-boss, Demonized General. After engaging in an intense battle with the Demonized General, he found the game pretty good. The Demonized General's behavior and skills were replicated very well, similar to the real Demonized General. Zhou Wen gamed the entire time. Behind him, Xianxia had been resting with his eyes closed. When he heard Zhou Wen gaming, he couldn't help but open his eyes and frown. Xianxia clearly didn't like Zhou Wen playing games all day. From his point of view, this was a form of obsession. And Sheng was an extremely clever person. When he saw Xianxia frown through the rearview mirror, he knew that things were bad. Hence, he said, "Young Master Wen, I heard that you and your classmates worked together to create a game that can be used to teach people about the various abilities of dimensional creatures. Is that it?" "Yes, production was just completed. It's my first time playing the closed beta. Currently, there's only a Tiger Cage Pass dungeon. In-game, there are demonized soldiers and demonized generals as monsters, and one can learn their behaviors and various skills through gaming. Through learning about how to deal with them in-game, it will be useful in real life. But games are games after all. One still needs to practice the combination of various skills in combat," Zhou Wen introduced. "That's pretty good. Overseer, why don't you play the game that Zhou Wen and company created? If it's feasible, it'll be helpful in understanding dimensional creatures. Perhaps it can be promoted, and Sheng said, "A game is just a game after all. If you have the time to play games, why don't you just spend time watching a video about it?" And Tianzuo closed his eyes again and continued resting. Chapter 516, Blood Text Scorpion. After arriving at White Cloud Mountain's encampment, the person in charge took Tianzuo and Sheng and Zhou Wen to White Cloud Mountain. And Tianzuo didn't have much time, so he had to rush back regardless of whether they killed the mythical creature today. Zhou Wen looked at White Cloud Mountain from afar and saw clouds lingering over it. The mountain was partially visible. It was indeed like a legendary, immortal mountain. There were many red birch forests. The mythical creature was at the foot of White Cloud Mountain, so there was no need to ascend the mountain. However, it was also within the range of Bayan Mountain. There was also a chance to see the unusual sight of the immortal palace in the clouds. If we continue moving forward, we might end up in an immortal palace illusion. Put this on. And Sheng handed Zhou Wen a balaclava. The balaclava was made of chemical fibers mixed with metal wires. After wearing it, it wouldn't affect one's breathing, but one's vision was blocked and it was impossible to see anything outside. No matter what you hear or what happens, make sure not to take off the balaclava. And Sheng put his balaclava on after giving Zhou Wen the rules. And Tianzuo and the officers from the other encampments also wore balaclavas. They had their own methods. Some relied on their special companion beasts for visual, while some relied on their hearing. Some rode their mounts directly, allowing them to replace their eyes. And Sheng summoned a strange companion beast. The companion beast looked like a large eye with wings. It flew beside Sheng and seemingly allowed him to see his surroundings. It was no different from normal. As for Tianzuo, he didn't summon a companion beast, nor was it clear what he had used. However, the balaclava didn't seem to affect his vision. He still moved as freely. Zhou Wen had truth listener, so he wasn't affected. The group followed an officer riding a companion beast into the depths of the red birch forest. White Cloud Mountain was mysterious, but there weren't many dimensional creatures here. However, every dimensional creature that appeared here was extremely terrifying. At the very least, they were epic creatures. Rumor had it that the red birch forest was very beautiful, but since Zhou Wen could only listen and not see color, he did not think it looked beautiful. Overseer, the Earth Listener beast has reacted. Love letter should be somewhere not far ahead. An officer riding on a companion beast suddenly said, "Prepare for battle." And Tianzuo gave the order. Apart from Zhou Wen, everyone began preparing for battle. After advancing for a short while, Zhou Wen heard a dimensional creature appear in front of him. The dimensional creature looked very strange. It looked like a large scorpion, but it had transparent wings on its back. It was huge and longer than an adult's height. Unfortunately, Zhou Wen could only hear and couldn't see its color. Otherwise, he would have discovered many strange things. The large scorpion was snow white, but there were many blood-colored patterns on its body. If one looked carefully, they would see that those blood-colored patterns formed strange characters. When Zhou Wen and company discovered the strange scorpion, it had also discovered them. With a flick of its tail, a blood-colored glow immediately appeared on the stinger, forming a strange blood-colored incantation pattern. The incantation pattern was completely condensed from light and looked very magical. Zhou Wen had heard from Sheng that this fellow had the ability to produce many things that resembled words. This was likely one of them, but Zhou Wen didn't know which one it was. While Zhou Wen was pondering, Sheng and company had already begun preparing for battle. However, contrary to Zhou Wen's expectations, the blood text on the scorpion's tail didn't shoot at Zhou Wen and company. All he saw was its tail stabbing into the ground as the blood text fused into the ground before disappearing. At that instant, Zhou Wen saw the ground around him suffuse a blood-colored glow. The soil seemed to have been penetrated by the sanguine light, as it emitted a lustrous red glow. The red beams varied in intensity, making Zhou Wen believe that he was in a huge light formation. The officers were clearly prepared. A companion beast beneath an officer raised its legs and condensed a holy white light. Then it stomped on the ground. The holy light immediately spread out and covered the red light below, preventing the area where Zhou Wen and company were standing from being affected. A strange phenomenon happened in the area that was affected by the red light. It was as if everything had slowed down. When the wind blew past the red birch forest, the forest that should have been rustling seemed to be a recording that played slowly. As the leaves swayed, it became extremely slow. This is its slow text. If we don't have the corresponding counterforce, our speed will drop drastically. When the time comes, we won't be able to dodge its attack, much less kill it. We will be killed, and Sheng said, as though he had discovered that the slow text was useless against them. A blood pattern flickered on the scorpion like mythical creatures' back, as a blood-colored text rushed out. The blood-colored text wasn't directed at Zhou Wen and company, but towards a red birch tree. The blood-red text hit the red birch tree and disappeared in a flash. It was as though it had drilled into the tree. In the next second, the tree withered rapidly and died. The blood-red text flew out from the withered tree. However, the blood-red text had clearly changed. Its shape had changed, and the blood-colored light had also become more intense. The blood-colored text floated above the scorpion and emitted a red light. Wherever the red light shone, all the red birch trees seemed to come alive. The roots broke out of the ground, and the branches swayed as they swept towards Zhou Wen and company like tree demons. A cold light flickered on the back of an officer, and an ice fox-like life soul appeared. An icy beam erupted from the life soul, freezing the nearby demonized red birch trees. And Sheng no longer had the time to explain to Zhou Wen. The scorpion's body emitted a sanguine light as red words flew out from its body, transforming into streaks of blood that attacked Zhou Wen and company. And Sheng and a few officers collectively resisted the blood beams. And Xianxia watched from the side, having no intention of attacking from beginning to end. Zhou Wen could roughly tell that the scorpion's strength was about the same as six-winged before it was strengthened, but its abilities were rather strange. Its blood-red text had many functions. Other than the few that he had seen, it could also transform into the power of wind, fire, lightning, and so on. If one were to encounter it the first time, or if they were not strong enough, they would easily be killed by it. However, Sheng and company had studied it for years. They had already thought of ways to counter its various powers. No matter how it changed its abilities, they could barely contain them. However, they had just managed to resolve it. Up to now, Zhou Wen had yet to see how they could kill the scorpion. Chapter 517, Failure. And Sheng's personal abilities were definitely top-notch at the epic stage. However, even he couldn't approach the scorpion. The scorpion's speed was too fast. With a flap of its wings, it could easily fly hundreds of meters away. Even Zhou Wen probably couldn't catch up to it easily with ghost steps. After repeatedly resolving the blood-colored text of wind, fire, and lightning, and Sheng and company seemed to have found an opportunity to counterattack. Within Sheng's command, the officers unleashed their strongest attack as terrifying forces struck the scorpion. There was a sanguine flash on the scorpion's back as a huge blood-red text appeared. It was like a shield that blocked their attacks. With a series of crashing sounds, their forces were shattered, but the blood-colored barrier remained completely fine. And Xianxia, who had remained motionless all this while, finally made a move. Flames rose over his body, turning into a strange life soul. The life soul's entire body was covered in white armor. The armor was neither gold nor jade. It looked more like it was carved from bones. Behind him was a blood-red cape. In his left hand was a slender bone saber covered in blood patterns. In his other hand was a gun made of bones. That thing, it can't be a Gatling, right? Zhou Wen looked at the weapon in the life soul's hand. The bone gun barrel was connected to the recoil mechanism. It looked like an ancient hot weapon that was often seen in movies. Just as Zhou Wen was pondering over it, he heard a terrifying boom. He saw the bone gun barrel shoot out blood-colored bullets like a storm. Boom! 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 Bullets rained down on the scorpion's blood-red text barrier, causing it to flicker as though it could shatter at any moment. Buzzing sounds could be heard as the bullets poured freely. The bloody text barrier of the scorpion shattered. This was the first time Zhou Wen had seen someone's life soul produce a hot weapon. Furthermore, its attack was crazy powerful. It could actually break through a mythical stage barrier. Although it was only a rather weak mythical creature, Zhou Wen had relied on ever-victorious's characteristic to kill Medusa. His life soul alone wasn't that powerful. The bullet hit the scorpion's body, instantly infuriating it. The wings on its back spread open, and there was a blood-red glow on its wings. Its entire body was covered in blood-red light, and the blood-red symbol at the tip of its tail appeared especially terrifying. The blood text circled around the scorpion's body and kept spinning, blocking the rain of bullets. When the bullets struck the blood text, they created a terrifying explosive shockwave that blasted the surrounding forest into pieces. Activate the halo, and Sheng instructed the officers. Two of the officers' companion beasts shimmered with light as they enveloped Tianzuo's body. It caused Tianzuo and his life soul's bodies to emit two strange beams of light. The Gatling's attacks became more ferocious as it pumped bullets at a denser and more powerful rate. Activate the curse. And Sheng also used an essence energy skill when he issued the order. He produced a strange gray smoke that enveloped the scorpion. The other officers also used various powers. Those powers did not have any lethality, but they had a slight effect on the scorpion. Boom! The scorpion was furious after being bombarded by the Gatling's attacks. The blood-red text surrounding it exploded with a terrifying sanguine light. Almost instantly, it engulfed everything nearby. Retreat! And Sheng issued an order before the blood text exploded. All the officers retreated within Sheng in a great display of teamwork. Zhou Wen followed them and retreated, but he realized that Tianzuo didn't retreat. The expanding sanguine light resembled a blood-colored black hole, devouring everything nearby. Tianzuo was already standing at the edge of the blood hole, about to be devoured. Zhou Wen was frowning when he suddenly saw Tianzuo's life soul vanish. As for Tianzuo, he had a white bone armor and a blood cape. He held a bone saber in one hand and a bone gatling in the other. Just when the sanguine light was about to devour him, a black figure flew out from his body and landed on the bone blade. Instantly, a demonic black flame rose on the bone blade. Tianzuo raised his bone saber and slashed at the sanguine light in front of him. He managed to cleave open a rift as he charged in. Gunfire roared and saber flames flashed. Tianzuo fought the scorpion crazily. The madness was completely different from the usual Tianzuo. As for Sheng and company, they constantly used various essence energy skills from behind. They either aimed at Tianzuo or at the scorpion. The only officer with the Ice Fox life soul and the ability to restrain the slow text was the busiest. They needed to constantly pump out damage to ensure that Tianzuo's region wasn't affected by the power of the slow text. Boom! The scorpion's body was sent flying by a backslash from Tianzuo's bone saber. Tianzuo raised the Gatling with his hand. The black flames on the bone saber instantly shifted to the bone Gatling before enveloping it. Boom! 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 Bullets with black flames roared towards the scorpion in midair, causing its body to constantly distort and rise in the air. In the end, its carapace was cracked by the bullets, and more bullets shot into its flesh and blood. The black flames also burned its flesh and bones. Boom! The blood patterns on the scorpion shattered and fell like glass. Success, and Sheng was overjoyed. Without the protection of the blood patterns, the storm like bullets bombarded the scorpion wantonly. The carapace of the scorpion was completely shattered, and blood spurted out. Just as the scorpion's body was about to explode, a blood-red light suddenly erupted from its abdomen. A strange blood text surfaced, and the blood quickly spread over the scorpion's body. Boom! The sanguine light exploded as its carapace and flesh transformed into a terrifying energy blast. And Tianzuo had no choice but to retreat. At the same time the explosion occurred, a sanguine light from the scorpion's body flew toward White Cloud Mountain at an unbelievable speed. And Tianzuo's body flashed as he chased in the direction of White Cloud Mountain. Damn it, that fellow actually has such a move. And Sheng cursed under his breath as he chased with his men. Zhou Wen chased after him as well. When they caught up to Tianzuo, they realized that he was standing in front of the mountain entrance. The scorpion that had self-destructed was nowhere to be seen. Love Letter escaped into Jade Emperor Peak, and Sheng had already guessed what was going on. And Tianzuo nodded slightly. We have failed. Let's head back. They knew that the scorpion was no longer able to survive. It was definitely on its last legs. As long as they could find it, even without Tianzuo's help, and Sheng could kill it himself. However, no one dared to enter Jade Emperor Peak. No matter how strong a person was, entering would only lead to death. Even Tianzuo could only return empty-handed. Mythical creatures were precious, but they couldn't trade for one with their lives. Chapter 518, Companion Egg Inside. Zhou Wen used Truth Listener to listen to the area beyond the mountain entrance. He found it dead silent. Unable to hear a thing, it was as though the particles inside were motionless, having not generated any vibrations. Jade Emperor Peak is indeed terrifying. It's such a pity. They prepared for so long, but all their efforts were in vain at the final moment. Zhou Wen felt sorry for Sheng. If a mythical companion egg dropped, Sheng's strength would definitely improve greatly. It would be much safer for him to carry out missions in the future. Along the way, Zhou Wen didn't find the tiny palm symbol. Although Truth Listener's ability couldn't hear the scene around him, he could hear the traces of carvings. If there was a tiny palm symbol, he should have heard it. And Tianzuo was a decisive person. Since all hope was lost, he did not hesitate to order Sheng and the officers to leave White Cloud Mountain with him. Just as they were about to leave, they suddenly heard a miserable scream coming from Jade Emperor Peak. It sounded like a creature's death cry. Its Love Letter. It died less than 20 meters away from Jade Emperor Peak. It even dropped a companion egg, an officer suddenly shouted. How do you know? And Tianzuo asked. I can't hear it, but I can see it with my eyes. It's inside. It's a companion egg the size of a football, and it resembles white jade. It has blood-colored text on it. The officer had used his hearing, but he couldn't hear anything. As he was unwilling to give up, he thought that it would be fine if he stole a glance. He removed his balaclava and had looked inside, seeing the companion egg. And Sheng. And Tianzuo had also used his hearing ability, but he couldn't see the situation inside. This was because Sheng's large-eyed companion beast gave him the ability of sight. If anyone could see it, Sheng would be the first, but Sheng hadn't said anything. Even if it's 20 meters, it's within the confines of Jade Emperor Peak. It's no different from 200 meters or 2,000 meters, Sheng answered. He was obviously the first person to discover the blood scorpion, but he did not say anything. Even though it was right in front of him, he still chose to give up. With that said, Sheng said to the officer, Old He, put on the balaclava. Are you tired of living? Overseer, adjutant, why don't we make an attempt? It's less than 20 meters inside. Perhaps there's a way to get the companion egg out. That's a mythical companion egg. The officer put on the balaclava and said to Tianzuo and Sheng, unwilling to give up. Ah, Sheng is right. It doesn't matter even if it's 2 centimeters within Jade Emperor Peak, much less 20 meters, said Xianxia. Overseer, let's try using companion beasts. At most, we will sacrifice a few companion beasts. We can still afford to lose them. The officers felt that it was a pity to leave. There's no need to try. Haven't we done enough experiments in the past? You can't enter the Jade Emperor Peak, regardless if they are humans or companion beasts. The outcome is the same, Ah Sheng objected firmly. Overseer, I have a companion beast that I obtained in a dimensional zone previously. It's called Evil Warding Spirit Rhinoceros. It has the ability to resist evil powers, so why not let it try? If Adjutant N can obtain a mythical pet, it'll be a boon for our Sunset Army. In the future, fewer of our brothers will die when we carry out missions, one of the officers said. Then give it a try, said Xianxia. Thank you, Overseer. The officer was instantly overjoyed. Overseer, and Sheng wanted to stop him. If we don't let them try, they won't be willing to give up. Just remember this. And Xianxia stopped Sheng from continuing. As they were speaking, Zhou Wen circled around the mountain entrance. He wanted to see if there was a tiny palm symbol nearby. He didn't have much hope, because the tiny palm symbol was typically engraved on a more conspicuous spot. It wasn't on the mountain entrance, so the chances of there being one were rather low. But he didn't expect to find the tiny palm symbol on a mountain rock to the east of the mountain entrance. The tiny palm symbol was engraved on a mountain rock that was about the height of a person. It was unknown what color the mountain rock was, but its shape was nothing special. The tiny palm symbol engraved on it was a small hand holding a small mountain-shaped rock. He took out his phone and took a picture of the small palm symbol. The phone quickly locked onto the picture and entered the download interface. Elsewhere, the officer had already summoned a moon-white rhinoceros. The rhinoceros looked very mighty, and it was much bigger than an ordinary rhinoceros. It was even bigger than an adult elephant. Its body was glowing with a jade glow, as though its body was enveloped by moonlight. Don't bother. It's a pity to lose a precious companion beast like the evil warding spirit rhinoceros, and Sheng said with a sigh. It's fine. It's less than 20 meters away. It's just one step of the evil warding spirit rhinoceros. He was determined. When the evil warding spirit rhinoceros stood in front of the stone entrance, he gave the order, and the evil warding spirit rhinoceros moved like a tank charging through the entrance. It headed straight for the spot where the companion egg had dropped. After it entered, Zhou Wen couldn't hear the evil warding spirit rhinoceros. He thought that since there wasn't any immortal palace phenomenon, he could take a look at the situation without looking up into the fog. He lifted the balaclava a little so that he could see the situation at the mountain entrance. He saw the evil warding spirit rhinoceros's body 4 to 5 meters away from the mountain entrance. Furthermore, it was still charging at high speed. With such a speed, it would only take a few seconds to traverse 20 meters. Zhou Wen also saw the companion egg. Indeed, it was less than 20 meters away from the mountain entrance. Just as he had said, there were blood-colored patterns on the jade-white egg. There was a pile of blood-colored powder on the ground. It was likely formed after the blood scorpion died. Just as Zhou Wen was sizing up the evil warding spirit rhinoceros, he saw a terrifying scene. After the huge rhinoceros rushed past the mountain entrance, its body turned into a piece of jade. It didn't get far, perhaps 10 meters, before the entire rhinoceros turned into a lifeless jade statue and fell to the ground. Boom! After a loud bang, the evil warding spirit rhinoceros shattered into pieces of jade. Furthermore, the pieces of jade that landed on the ground kept disintegrating, becoming smaller and smaller. Like sand, they split apart and finally turned to dust. Zhou Wen couldn't help but shiver. He finally knew what was going on with the pile of blood-colored powder beneath the companion egg. Even the blood scorpion couldn't withstand the terrifying power from Jade Emperor Peak. It had ended up in the same state as the evil warding spirit rhinoceros. However, the companion egg wasn't affected by the terrifying force. Ding! Zhou Wen's phone notified the completion of the download. He looked down and saw a black mountain icon on the screen. However, it wasn't White Cloud Mountain but Demon Suppression Mountain. Chapter 519, Zero Taboo. After tapping open the Demon Suppression Mountain dungeon, he realized that the blood-colored avatar had appeared in front of the black stone. Beside it was White Cloud Mountain's entrance. Other than the cartoon image, the layout was identical to the real White Cloud Mountain. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and attempted to let the blood-colored avatar enter the mountain entrance. He wanted to see if Truth Listener's ability could withstand the terrifying power of Jade Emperor Peak. However, it was useless. The power on Jade Emperor Peak wasn't an evil force like a curse. After a few steps, the blood-colored avatar turned to dust. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and dripped his blood to revive. He walked into Jade Emperor Peak once again, but this time he switched his essence energy art to a Tao art. His life providence had naturally transformed into a Tao body and zero taboo. The moment the blood-colored avatar took half a step in, the zero taboo crystal in his consciousness lit up like a light bulb. It works. Zhou Wen was delighted as he controlled the blood-colored avatar to continue walking forward. After taking a few steps, his body was fine. Cracks began to appear on the zero taboo crystal, as though it was about to shatter. It really can't be taken out. In front of the mountain entrance, he wore a look of disappointment. He wasn't sad for the death of his evil warding spirit rhinoceros, but because he couldn't retrieve the companion egg for Xianxia. With the overseer around, we will have plenty of chances to kill mythical creatures in the future. It's just a matter of time, Xianxia said. He found it a pity that the evil warding spirit rhinoceros died. It was one of the few epic companion beasts that could ward off evil. It was a pity to lose it. Let's go. And Xianxia gave another order. This time, no one said a word. Although they were unwilling to give up on the mythical companion egg in front of them, they had no choice but to leave. Sheng, let me give it a try. Perhaps I can take it out, Zhou Wen said as he walked over. If the companion egg was in Xianxia's, Zhou Wen wouldn't have stepped forward. He might even have waited for them to leave before secretly returning to retrieve the companion egg. However, the companion egg was for Xianxia, so Zhou Wen felt that he should help. Xianxia had given him plenty of help and had risked his life with him. He had plenty of chances to obtain mythical companion eggs in the future, but it was unlikely to have someone willing to risk his life for him at critical moments. Young Master Wen, if you wish to use a mythical companion beast to take the companion egg, there's no need to bother. Love Letter is also at the mythical stage. It also failed to withstand the power of Jade Emperor Peak, Xianxia said. If I just want to take out the companion egg, it's very simple. I don't need to use a mythical companion beast. As Zhou Wen spoke, he walked to the mountain entrance and deliberately sounded relaxed. He didn't say that he was the one entering. This was because he knew very well that if he said that he was the one entering, Xianxia would have definitely stopped him. It was impossible that he would let him take the risk. Young Master Wen, what solution do you have? Xianxia asked. And Xianxia and the officers looked at Zhou Wen. They also wanted to know if he really had a way to bring out the companion egg. He looked at Zhou Wen and said, Young Master Wen, if you have a way to bring out the companion egg, just let me know if there's anything I can do in the future. I'll be at your beck and call. Xianxia had saved the lives of He's family. He had always treated Xianxia's matters as his own. I'll remember that. As Zhou Wen spoke, he looked past the mountain entrance. Xianxia and company believed that he would summon a companion beast, but to their surprise, Zhou Wen suddenly took a step forward and walked through the mountain pass. No. Xianxia turned pale with fright as he rushed towards the mountain entrance. Someone was faster than him, as he appeared in front of the mountain entrance in a flash. He extended his hand to grab Zhou Wen, but he was still a step slower. Zhou Wen had already rushed past the mountain entrance. When Sheng rushed to the mountain entrance, he was held back by Xianxia, who had arrived a step earlier. He didn't let him chase after Zhou Wen. "Look carefully. His body isn't affected," and Xianxia said to Sheng in a deep voice as he took off his balaclava. Old He and company were also alarmed. They originally imagined that Zhou Wen would use a special companion beast to make the attempt. They never expected him to walk in by himself. And Sheng stood outside the stone door and looked at Zhou Wen inside. He quickly walked towards the companion egg. His speed was astonishing. More importantly, his body didn't disintegrate like the evil warding spirit rhinoceros. Zhou Wen's body landed in front of the companion egg like a wisp of smoke. He reached out and scooped the companion egg into his hand, before turning around and retreating. This back and forth was swift and elegant, like a swift saber that had been unsheathed. With a flash, the saber had already returned into the sheath before one could see what the blade looked like. When Zhou Wen returned to the mountain entrance with the blood scorpion companion egg in hand, Old He and company jolted to attention as though they had been in a dream. They speechlessly looked at Zhou Wen, who was standing in front of them in perfect condition. "Young Master Wen, you are really too rash." And Sheng sized up Zhou Wen's body and only heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that there wasn't anything wrong with his body. "Don't worry. I won't do anything that I'm not confident of." Zhou Wen threw the companion egg to Sheng. "Young Master Wen, thank you." And Sheng received the companion egg and said with a smile, "Not considering the consequences of your actions will one day make you pay the price. Put on your balaclavas and we will head down the mountain," and Xianxia said coldly. He put his balaclava on and turned to head down the mountain. Everyone hurriedly put on their balaclavas and followed Xianxia down the mountain. When they reached a fork on the mountainside, Zhou Wen asked Sheng, "Ah Sheng, is Jade Rabbit's lunar prayer on the mountain over there?" "It's there all right. I'll take you there," and Sheng said. Old He also said, "Young Master Wen, if you want to pay a visit, I'll take you there. However, it's just a stone. There's nothing to see. There's no need. There's no danger there anyway. I just want to take a look myself. You guys can go back now," Zhou Wen said as he walked up the mountain path. And Sheng didn't insist on going with him. Since Zhou Wen could remain unharmed in Jade Emperor Peak, nothing outside posed a danger to him. Adjutant An, this young Master Wen is amazing. He actually managed to enter and exit Jade Emperor Peak safely. He's really strong. Is he still in school?" Old He asked Sheng as he watched Zhou Wen disappear on the mountain path. "Don't you know whose family young Master Wen is from? How can a person who can be doted on so much by Madam not be strong?" As Sheng spoke, he used his large eyes to glance at Xianxia, but unfortunately, he couldn't see Xianxia's expression through the balaclava. "You're right. Young Master Wen is Madam Lan's son. It's only right for him to be strong." Old He smiled. Chapter 520. One takes on the color of one's company. Zhou Wen walked all the way up to the mountain where Jade Rabbit's lunar prayer was. Although Zero Taboo seemed to have the ability to counter White Cloud Mountain's taboo powers, Zhou Wen still wore the balaclava and used Truth Listener's ability to scout the way. If he were to see the immortal palace phenomenon, it would be quite an unjust death in the event Zero Taboo failed to work. There were indeed very few dimensional creatures on White Cloud Mountain. Zhou Wen walked all the way to the peak, but he didn't even encounter a single one. After reaching the top of the mountain, Zhou Wen finally saw the legendary Jade Rabbit's lunar prayer stone. Perhaps it was because Zhou Wen's imagination wasn't good, but no matter how he looked at it, it didn't resemble a rabbit. The theurge said that the item is beneath this stone, but this stone seems to be connected to the mountain. Should I dig it up? Zhou Wen circled the moon rabbit stone, but didn't find the good stuff that the Theurge had mentioned. Although it wasn't nice to destroy a natural landscape, Zhou Wen couldn't be bothered anymore. He summoned the six-winged guardian dragon and made it push the moon rabbit stone to see if there was anything below. The six-winged guardian dragon had 80 strength after all. With the augmentation of an essence energy skill, it could snap the mountain, much less a mere rock. However, it was unable to move the moon rabbit stone at all, despite using all its might. Zhou Wen couldn't help but be surprised. With the strength of six-winged, even a piece of titanium alloy should have snapped, much less a rock. Indeed, there's something here. Zhou Wen made six-winged stop. He probably couldn't move the moon rabbit stone with brute force. Zhou Wen studied how to deal with the moon rabbit stone, but he failed to budget despite exhausting all the methods he could think of. All he could do was leave White Cloud Mountain and return to the encampment. He planned on contacting the Theurge and asking her how to take the item under the moon rabbit stone. After Zhou Wen returned to the encampment, he warmly welcomed him back. He also told him that Sheng and Tianzuo had already left because they were needed in Luoyang. They had left a message saying that if Zhou Wen wanted to return, he could get he to drive him back. On the rugged mountain road, Sheng was fiddling with his phone while driving. To him, multitasking was not a difficult task. There was no conflict between driving and playing games. Ordinary people were forbidden from doing this, as it was very easy for accidents to happen, bringing harm to themselves and others. The scene that appeared on Sheng's phone screen was the game that Zhou Wen had invested in. He held the phone in one hand as his fingers moved rapidly. It was no different from how others played with two hands. He was even more agile. The game character used all sorts of odd positioning and releasing of skills to beat the demonized soldiers and generals. "Why aren't you driving properly? What are you doing there?" And Tianzuo, who was sitting behind with his eyes closed, suddenly asked. "I downloaded the game that Zhou Wen and company made. Now that I'm trying it, it's really not bad. The feedback from attacking and the usage of skills are very good. The parameters are also very similar to reality, especially those demonized soldiers and generals. Their behavior and skills are identical to reality. After playing this game, if one were to encounter demonized soldiers and generals, one would know how to deal with them. This game is really not bad. From the looks of it, young Master Wen isn't just playing games," Sheng said as he played. "He's just trying to play to the gallery. Watching a video allows one to understand dimensional creatures better than gaming. It's not like I see him doing any research. All he does is game. The so-called understanding of dimensional creatures is just an excuse to game," said Tianzuo. Sheng defended Zhou Wen. "It's still a little different. From watching the video, one can only know what kind of abilities a dimensional creature has. Ordinary people can't tell what skills they can use to deal with it just by watching a video. However, in-game, they can attempt to use various skills to attack dimensional creatures. They can then know which skills are effective against them. Furthermore, through in-game combat, it's easier to remember the timing of the various skills used by dimensional creatures. This game is a high-level strategy guide. It would be even better if we could turn it into a holographic game. I realize that ever since you and Zhou Wen went out a few times, you are getting better at clever, but false, arguments," Tianzuo said with a cold expression. "Overseer, you're right. It's my fault. Games only make people lose their aspirations." "It's useless," Sheng hurriedly said. "You've even learned how to agree overtly despite your private opposition. Indeed, one takes on the color of one's company. Hand over the phone," Tianzuo said coldly when he saw that Sheng was still playing. "I was wrong, all right," Sheng hurriedly put away his phone. "I told you to hand me the phone," Tianzuo said with a deadpan expression as he stared at Sheng through the rearview mirror. Sheng helplessly handed his phone to Tianzuo, who was sitting behind him. and Tianzuo reached out and took it. He glared at Sheng and said, "Drive properly. If you continue with such nonsense, you'll be punished to guard Chess Mountain." And Sheng tersely responded and continued driving. He didn't dare do anything else. And Tianzuo closed his eyes to rest for a while, but he had a nagging feeling. After a while, Tianzuo opened his eyes again and picked up the phone beside him. After unlocking it, his gaze landed on the app icon named Dimension. The corners of Tianzuo's eyes twitched slightly. He reached out and pulled the curtains to give himself privacy from Sheng. Then he said to him, "I'll rest for a while. Don't disturb me." "Got it, overseer," Sheng said. And Tianzuo held his phone and turned off the sound. Then he tapped on the icon. Soon, an ink-styled interface appeared on his phone. Zhou Wen rested in the encampment. As there was a signal in the encampment, he sent a message to the Thirch, but after waiting for several hours, he still didn't receive a reply. Just as Zhou Wen thought that the Thirch wasn't replying to him on purpose, he finally received a message. He opened it and saw that it was from the Thirch. To learn the divine art, one must self-castrate. Zhou Wen read the message clearly, and countless question marks appeared in his mind. Then, he sent a row of question marks. It was sent wrongly. It was for someone else. "If you want the treasure, you must wait for the moon to rise." The Thirch replied very quickly this time. "So I have to wait until the moon rises before I can obtain the treasure under the moon rabbit stone." Zhou Wen was enlightened, but he suddenly felt that something was amiss. "The Thirch, you said that you sent the message wrongly. Then who were you planning on sending that sentence to?" Zhou Wen's expression turned odd. Since the Thirch could use her phone to go online, it was not surprising that she could add friends on the internet. The strange thing was, why did she send such a message to the other party? "It's a guy who wants to learn divine arts. His name seems to be John Cape," the Thirch replied. John Cape. Zhou Wen naturally wouldn't forget this fellow. After all, it was because of Liz and John that he and the Cape family had become enemies. Chapter 521, Immortal Palace Phenomenon. Zhou Wen originally wanted to ask what the Thirch was doing, but the Thirch didn't reply to him. Zhou Wen had to temporarily put the matter aside. In the afternoon, Zhou Wen arrived in front of the Jade Rabbit's lunar prayer stone again. There, he waited for the moon to rise from the east. However, there was a problem. The Thirch said that he had to push the moon rabbit stone the moment the moon rose. Although Truth Listener was very powerful and could hear very minute sounds, it was still unknown if he could tell that the moon had risen. If Truth Listener were to advance further in the future and advance to the mythical stage, it might be able to hear something even deeper, such as the rotations of electrons or the flowing sound of photons. When that happened, it was possible to use one's hearing to determine if the moon had risen. However, he definitely couldn't do it now. After some hesitation, Zhou Wen switched his essence energy art to a Tao art before removing the balaclava. Zhou Wen estimated the time. The moon was about to rise. If he were to use his eyes, he wouldn't be so unlucky to chance upon the Immortal Palace phenomenon, right? However, even if he were to see the Immortal Palace phenomenon, he had the zero taboo life soul. It was unlikely he would die so easily. While waiting for the sun to set at the garrison, Zhou Wen studied his zero taboo life soul. After entering White Cloud Mountain's Jade Emperor Peak and other dimensional zones, he discovered something. Zero taboo and Truth Listener's evil nullification were somewhat different. When evil nullification was in effect, it could deal with man-made curses. Zero taboo did little against them. According to Zhou Wen's judgment, it worked against powers that came from the laws of nature. For example, White Cloud Mountain's Jade Emperor Peak, small Buddha Temple, or say Gasakai's will renewal. They were all unreasonable powers. That was just how the laws of nature worked. Zero taboo was very useful in this aspect. However, its effects were difficult to distinguish from evil nullification. There was some overlap between the two, and Zhou Wen was still studying them. His understanding of zero taboo wasn't thorough enough, so he was still in the guessing phase. However, zero taboo was not truly without any restrictions. It could last for about 10 seconds inside White Cloud Mountain's Jade Emperor Peak. Any longer, the zero taboo life soul would explode from the pressure. In small Buddha temple, as long as he did not enter the temple hall, zero taboo was fine. However, once he entered the temple hall, it could only last for 10 seconds. Although the immortal palace phenomenon was terrifying, Zhou Wen guessed that it wouldn't have much of an effect on him. Zero taboo and evil nullification were of some use. After pulling up the balaclava, Zhou Wen looked east. Although the sun and moon weren't in the sky, it wasn't too dark since the sun had just set. As he looked over, he saw a sea of white clouds. Occasionally, a few mountain peaks would appear out of the sea of clouds, like a few black islands in a white sea. The scene was indeed as beautiful as a fairyland. It's a pity that no one has the chance to enjoy such beautiful scenery. If it was before the dimensional storms, I'm afraid this place would have been filled with tourists. Zhou Wen suddenly felt that the dimensional storms might not be a bad thing. If there were tourists crowding the place, no matter how beautiful it would be greatly affected. The immortal palace didn't appear. Zhou Wen kept track of time and knew that the moon would rise at any moment. He didn't wear the balaclava and sat there to watch the sea of clouds. On the mountains above the sea of clouds, he could see some ancient buildings. However, they weren't places he could go carelessly. Zhou Wen only admired them for the time being. After waiting for less than 2 minutes, a crescent moon slowly floated out from the sea of clouds horizon. The moonlight was not strong, and it was not bright. It was very mild. Just as Zhou Wen was about to push the moon rabbit stone again, a white jade-like immortal palace appeared where the crescent moon rose. There were pavilions and pagodas, as well as jade halls and shrines. Beautiful and elegant immortal palaces appeared in the clouds, and he could even see fairies flitting about. Faintly, he could even hear singing coming from those immortal palaces. Immortal palace phenomenon. Zhou Wen was alarmed. The zero taboo life soul had already lit up his mind. Clearly, it had a reaction to the immortal palace phenomenon. The intensity of the zero taboo's reaction wasn't inferior to the Jade Emperor Peak. Zhou Wen took a careful look before closing his eyes and pulling down the balaclava. The brightened zero taboo life soul also dimmed. Thankfully, my theory is correct. Zero taboo seems to be useful against all taboo powers in a dimensional zone. Zhou Wen recalled the scene of the immortal palace in his mind. The immortal palace was extremely magnificent, but it didn't have much value to Zhou Wen. Instead, it was the dancing fairies that gave him some insight. The fairy in Dragon Gate Grotto was only at the epic stage after all. Transcendent Flying Immortal's attack was only an epic essence energy skill. Although through Zhou Wen's constant insight and creativity, it had reached an outstanding level at the epic stage, it was still inferior to a true godlike skill. Having seen the figures of the fairies in the immortal palace, Zhou Wen immediately gained new insights. Without a doubt, if those fairies really existed, they would all be true mythical creatures. Ignoring the fairies' stances, Zhou Wen extended his hand to push the moon rabbit stone just as the moon rose. Although it was still very heavy, it moved slightly with his strength. Overjoyed, Zhou Wen pushed harder and shoved the moon rabbit stone to the side bit by bit. Then, he realized that beneath it was a jade box embedded in the stone's indentation. Zhou Wen reached out to take out the jade box, only to find it cold to the touch. After touching the indentation and confirming that there was nothing else, Zhou Wen pushed the moon rabbit stone back. With the jade box in his arms, Zhou Wen planned on looking at what was inside the box when he returned home. Since he had already obtained it, he wasn't in a hurry. As he thought about leaving the mountain, he couldn't bear it. After some thought, Zhou Wen pulled up the balaclava slightly and looked at the rising moon in the east. The phenomenon of the immortal palace was still there. Numerous immortal palaces floated above the sea of clouds, looking extremely realistic. It was not something ethereal like a mirage. The fairies danced among the immortal palaces. All of them had elegant and graceful postures. They seemed much more profound than the fairies in Dragon Gate Grotto. Zero Taboo kept emitting light. It felt like it would shatter in a few more seconds. Zhou Wen didn't dare take another look. Just as he was about to close his eyes, he suddenly saw a beautiful fairy fly out from a palace. The moment she appeared, the other fairies immediately paled in comparison. It was as though the halo around them had vanished as they became mere mortal beauties. Only the fairy who had just appeared deserved being described as an immortal fairy. Zhou Wen only took a glance and saw numerous crisscrossing cracks appear on the Zero Taboo crystal. Just as it was about to explode, Zhou Wen hurriedly closed his eyes in fright. Chapter 522, Change in Ranking. This time, when he closed his eyes, the Zero Taboo crystal didn't immediately extinguish. It continued emitting light. The cracks on the crystal were still spreading, and it was about to shatter. It left Zhou Wen shuddering in fear. Thankfully, the crystal didn't shatter, and the light gradually dimmed. Now, the Zero Taboo crystal was like a glass bead that had been doused in cold water after being heated over a flame. It was full of cracks, looking as if it would shatter at any moment. Amazing! I only took a glance at her, and she nearly blasted apart my life soul. If she really exists, I wonder what status she has among mythical creatures. Zhou Wen could still recall the scene of the fairy dancing in the air. Her figure seemed to contain some profound charms. It was indescribably beautiful and shocking. Zhou Wen closed his eyes and sat on the moon rabbit stone. He carefully recalled the details of the fairy's figure, hoping to figure out the true secret of flying immortal. Zhou Wen could sense that the fairy's figure was extremely valuable to his transcendent flying immortal, but after thinking for a long time, he felt that there was something in the way between the two. It made him feel like he was looking at a beauty through a layer of frosted glass. He could see her, but not clearly. He couldn't help but feel vexed. He stood up and walked down the mountain. He wanted to have a change of environment and mood. Perhaps that way, he might be able to understand what was happening. He would never dare to look at that immortal palace phenomenon again. After returning to the encampment, Zhou Wen took out the jade box and placed it on the table. After studying it for a while, he opened the lid. Inside the jade box were dozens of crystals the size of cat eyes. They were of different colors and shapes. I wonder what attributes these dimensional crystals have. Zhou Wen took out his mysterious phone and snapped them. It turned out that they were all epic dimensional crystals. Most of them were crystals of the 4 basic stats. Only 2 were essence energy skill crystals. This left Zhou Wen somewhat disappointed. He originally believed that the Thirch's mention of something would be no trifling matter. Although epic crystals were not bad, they were far inferior to the mythical crystal from before. However, on second thought, it made sense. The Thirch told him about these so that he could exchange them for money. So why would she get him to retrieve mythical crystals that weren't easily sold? Epic crystals were the easiest to produce at present. Furthermore, there was a relatively high demand for them. There were at least 10 crystals, and they all had different attributes. Some were bad, while others were not bad. The best one was a speed crystal with 38 stats. It was likely worth quite a bit of money. Of course, the most valuable ones were the 2 essence energy skill crystals. One was the Cloud Crane crystal, while the other was the Cloud Deer crystal. Zhou Wen had never seen these 2-dimensional creatures before, nor did he know what skills they had. He placed the crystals back into the jade box and picked it up to put into the chaos space. The dimensional crystals weren't very warm, but the jade box was as cold as ice. It didn't seem ordinary. Is it possible that this jade box is something good? Zhou Wen held the jade box and began studying it. The jade box was the color of the moon. It was translucent, and he almost could see through it, but it also appeared opaque. It was as if there were clouds within the jade. After Zhou Wen carefully studied the jade box, he found something amiss. There were many cloud patterns engraved on the jade box. The patterns were of different shapes and sizes. If one were to look at them with the eyes of an ordinary person, they would be clouds of different shapes and sizes. One would write it off as nothing special. Even though some people felt that the cloud patterns were special, it was difficult to see the true meaning behind them. However, after Zhou Wen carefully observed them, he realized that the different types of clouds contained the beauty of a fairy's figure. Every cloud pattern looked like a fairy. If he hadn't seen the fairies flying, it would probably be difficult for him to tell the charms of these cloud patterns. This is really something good. Zhou Wen picked up the jade box and continued studying the cloud patterns. As he looked at them, he compared them with the fairy poses he had seen. His understanding deepened. While Zhou Wen was studying the cloud patterns, another shocking event happened. The black cube lit up again before another companion beast appeared on the ranking. The second companion beast on the ranking was actually the publicly acknowledged #1 companion beast, Verbis Diablo Holy Angel. The Verbis Diablo Holy Angel's ranking had been ranked by a big organization in the Federation. It was known as the #1 pet at the epic stage. Now that it had taken its place on the cube's ranking, it actually failed to surpass the six-winged guardian dragon. It was only ranked second. No one could help but speculate how powerful the six-winged guardian dragon was to be able to suppress the Verbis Diablo, Holy Angel. This was truly quite a shock. In the past few days, there had been no movement. Only six-winged had been placed on the list. When the Verbis Diablo Holy Angel entered the rankings, many companion beasts sprouted like mushrooms after a rain. They were listed one after another. On the cube screen, various pet creatures constantly appeared. Apart from the angel and dragon, there were also sprites, magical beasts, and other companion beasts. The six-winged guardian dragon, which was originally in first place, dropped to third place in a day. 8 others ranked after it. A total of 11 companion beasts were listed. 2 companion beasts ranked ahead of the six-winged guardian dragon. The first was Death of the Underworld, while the second was Frost Giant. They were companion beasts no one had heard of before. As for the famous Verbis Diablo Holy Angel, it was ranked dead last among all the companion beasts on the list. This caused a huge wave of discussion across the entire Federation. Only then did many ordinary people realize that the so-called strongest Verbis Diablo Holy Angel was just a bottom-tier existence in the world of truly powerful pets. The powerful companion beasts were enough to make one gasp in excitement. However, at the same time, people were guessing who the extremely powerful companion beasts belonged to. Including Zhou Wen's six-winged guardian dragon, there were a total of 3 dragons that entered the rankings. It could be said that among all the mythical creatures, they were the most common species. However, one tidbit was very surprising. All the companion beasts that entered the rankings, be they angels, dragons, elemental sprites, or death, were companion beasts from the West and North districts. They didn't see any special companion beasts from East District and South District on the list. In fact, all the families that made a move this time came from the West and North districts. Among them, the Cape family of the West District put in the most work and managed to occupy 4 ranks in one go. The East District's Xia family and Zhang family, and the South District's Dugu family didn't have any companion beasts appear on the ranking. The 4 districts seemed to have a completely different attitude towards the rankings. Zhou Wen didn't know anything about the change in ranking. Although Zhou Wen declined Old He's offer to take him back, Old He insisted. Chapter 523, Flying Immortal's Stance. After returning to school, Zhou Wen heard the students discussing the companion beasts on the rankings. Ordinary students suspected that they were mythical companion beasts, but no one had ever seen one. Zhou Wen also went online to take a look. Many media outlets and individuals had captured the pictures of the companion beasts on the cube. Death of the Underworld looked very strange. He was wearing a gray cloak. Black and blue light filled its insides. He did not have a physical body and looked a little like the legendary Death. However, he did not have a scythe in his hands. Frost Giant was a giant with a deep blue body. Wherever he went, ice would form on the ground. The other companion beasts were also unique. Angels were holy, sprites were beautiful, and dragons looked about the same. However, for a companion beast to be ranked, one could tell that they were extraordinary just from their aura alone. Unfortunately, only the images of the companion beasts were shown on the cube. Their skills weren't listed. Zhou Wen didn't know what the ranking was for, but he quickly lost interest. He picked up his phone and continued grinding Torch Dragon. After his battle with Torch Dragon, Zhou Wen gradually started to use his speed and crystal mirror to block Torch Dragon's bright torch vision world. Unfortunately, a Sun Beast companion egg was a rare drop. If there were 2 or more crystal mirrors, the success rate of killing Torch Dragon would be much higher. Zhou Wen thought of many solutions. For example, using a large number of companion beasts to shield him, but it was useless. The blood-colored avatar and all the companion beasts in front of him were reflected into the vision world. Apart from the crystal mirror that could reflect, the other companion beasts weren't of much use. As for using the crystal mirror to block Torch Dragon's gaze, he needed to grasp the timing and position perfectly, or it would be very difficult to block. The problem was that Torch Dragon's bright torch vision world wasn't a skill that could only be used once. Therefore, Zhou Wen needed to defend against it many times in battle. Otherwise, he would die. As for demonic neonate that remained on the blood-colored avatar's back, she constantly tried to find Torch Dragon's flaws to attack it. There were a few times when she really found an opportunity. The ancient sword stabbed at Torch Dragon, but it only managed to penetrate a tiny length of the blade. It did not pose much of a threat to Torch Dragon. As for the blood-colored avatar, it couldn't survive until demonic neonate killed Torch Dragon. According to Zhou Wen's calculations, he needed to survive at least 3 hours in front of Torch Dragon before demonic neonate could kill it. This was the best situation. If the situation didn't go as smoothly as Zhou Wen expected, it might take even longer. Zhou Wen's most pressing problem was to 100% block the bright torch vision world for those few hours. Just one mistake meant immediate death. All his efforts would be in vain. After a bitter battle for an hour, the blood-colored avatar was once again killed by Torch Dragon's bright torch vision world. This was the longest time Zhou Wen had lasted. I can't make any mistakes, and I have to be absolutely precise. In a high-intensity battle, I have to ensure that I can throw out the crystal mirror with perfect timing and positioning while facing a powerful creature like Torch Dragon. Furthermore, it's really difficult to judge Torch Dragon's actions accurately. Zhou Wen thought about it and realized that it was very difficult for him to boost his success rate. After all, the other party was a mythical creature stronger than him. It wasn't that easy to determine its actions and motions. Since it's very difficult to improve my judgment, I can only increase my speed and ability to adjust my position. I'll try my best to prevent Torch Dragon from seeing me. Therefore, in the following battles, Zhou Wen consciously fused Dragon Gate Flying Immortal skill and Transcendent Flying Immortal into the fairy stance he had comprehended, hoping to improve his movement technique to another level. This wasn't an easy task. Zhou Wen felt that there was a barrier between the fairy stances and his movement techniques. It was very difficult to achieve perfection, and there would be problems when fusing them. Zhou Wen wasn't someone who would give up in the face of adversity. He continued researching and improving, especially the beautiful fairy stance. Zhou Wen spent a great deal of time comprehending and researching. At the Bureau's headquarters, there was a lot of information placed in front of Xianxia. It was all about the black cubes and the companion beasts on the ranking. Director General, other than the six-winged guardian dragon, the origins of the other companion beasts are almost confirmed, Kaio Siyuan said. Shen Yuchai nodded slightly. Why did those families in the West and North District put their mythical pets on the rankings? Have you investigated? In fact, Shen Yuchai didn't need to investigate to know which families these companion beasts came from. The key was why they wanted to expose their mythical companion beasts to the public. Before this, every family clan hid their mythical companion beasts, afraid that others would know how many they had. But this time, they actually revealed a portion of them. Although a number were already known to outsiders, it still felt puzzling. According to our investigations, those few families seem to have figured out some of the secrets of the Black Cube. They know that there would be benefits if they were to be ranked, which is why they made such a move. However, this information has not been verified yet, so we don't know of its veracity, Kaio Siyuan answered very conservatively. What kind of benefits? Shen Yuchai knew what Kaio Siyuan was getting at. This news should have come from within those few families, but he couldn't guarantee that they were using it as a smokescreen. From what they say, the companion beasts on the ranking might be fancied by terrifying existences in the dimensional zones. There might be benefits, but they aren't sure if the news is real or not, nor do they know what benefits there will be. Kaio Siyuan explained the information he gathered in detail. After Shen Yuchai heard that, he remained silent. Director General, what should we do? Kaio Siyuan asked. The Zhang family, the Xia family, and the Dugu family didn't make a move. The West and North districts only sent some companion beasts as a test. It's not time for us to step forward. Let's just wait and see for now. After a pause, Shen Yuchai asked again, how's the progress of Wang Minjuan's students? It's not going well. Zhou Wen and Hui Heifeng are protected by their families, so it's very difficult to bring them back. Jiang Yan and Zhang Zia's whereabouts are unknown. We've been tracking them for so long, but we haven't been able to catch them. None of Wang Minjuan's 4 students are simple. I think Wang Minjuan might have other motives for taking them in as his students. It's not just a coincidence. Kaio Siyuan paused and said, besides, the 6 families aren't too concerned about this matter now. For some reason, even the Cape family that wanted to capture Zhu, when the most seemed to have forgotten about it. They're all focused on the rankings. That's strange. Shen Yuchai pondered over the cause and effect of everything. Chapter 524, In the Name of an Angel. In a mysterious land of the West District, in front of an ancient, glorious cathedral, John advanced step by step. Every step he took felt as if he was going against the flow. It drained all his strength. Within the cathedral, a holy light shone out, causing people to involuntarily lower their heads, not daring to look at the light. When John walked to the door of the cathedral and pushed open the door with all his strength, the holy light instantly illuminated the entire world. John saw a huge angel mural inside the cathedral. The portrait of the angel drew a holy 6-winged seraphim. Strangely, there was a drop of blood at the corner of the 6-winged seraphim's eye. Its eyes seemed to contain endless sorrow. John's gaze was only slightly shocked by the 6-winged seraphim's portrait before he was attracted by something in it. Between the 6-winged seraphim's hands was a strange white cocoon-like object. It was clearly a portrait, but the white cocoon in the picture seemed to exist. The Theurch didn't lie to me. There's really such a thing. It really exists. John looked excited as he stared at the white cocoon in the painting. His eyes gradually turned strange. Gritting his teeth, John walked to the portrait of the 6-winged seraphim and cut his palm with a knife, letting his blood drip onto the white cocoon. It was clearly a mural, but when John's blood dripped onto the white cocoon, it strangely slid to the side. Not a single drop of blood touched the white cocoon. Do I really have to do that to hatch it? John's eyes gradually wore a crazed look as he watched his blood drop to the ground. No matter what price I have to pay, I must defeat that person. I must, Just as the madness in John's eyes reached its apex, he suddenly held the knife and slashed at his lower body. Blood splattered as something fell to the ground. The blood which flowed from John's palm was unable to touch the white cocoon in the beginning. It was as though there was a force that kept the blood away from it. But now, the white cocoon no longer rejected John's blood. Drops of blood landed on it and seeped in. Soon, it dyed the white cocoon red. As the white cocoon absorbed the blood, it emitted a holy light. John's body bathed in the holy light as his wounds healed rapidly. At the same time, his damaged essence energy C was restored. Furthermore, his entire body had undergone a strange transformation. John felt a pure and holy power flowing through his body. It was stronger and purer than before he was injured. Under the support of that power, his holy emperor body also underwent an unpredictable change. John felt his body hurt and itch all over as though he was undergoing puberty again. He felt the strength in his body constantly increasing. John almost couldn't feel the pain and only felt extremely excited. The strength within John's body burst out uncontrollably. His limbs flailed in the air in an exaggerated manner. His skin was milk-like, and he emitted a holy radiance. And behind him, a pair of snow-white angel wings appeared. However, this pair of angel wings was only an illusion and not a real existence. John was already handsome to begin with, but now he looked even more handsome. He was like an angel from heaven, as though he was from another world. Compared to John from the past, this John was less masculine and more feminine. This wasn't strange, because angels had no gender. Crack, crack. When John's body completed the transformation from a human to an angel, the white cocoon cracked and gradually revealed a figure in the cocoon. It was an angel who was even more handsome than John. He had 6 angel wings on his back, and his blonde hair emitted a sun-like radiance. His entire body seemed to be enveloped by holy light. When he walked out of the white cocoon, the entire world seemed to be subdued by his radiance and turned dim. John looked at the 6-winged seraphim in front of him with a fervent gaze. He felt that the power in his body was getting stronger and stronger, as if it was affected by the 6-winged seraphim. He looked down at John like a god. He extended a hand and pressed it on John's head. He said calmly, "In the name of an angel, I'll bestow you the power to be protected." With that holy voice, a terrifying holy light erupted from the palm of the 6-winged seraphim, enveloping John's body completely in holy light. Finally, even the 6-winged seraphim's body was devoured by the holy light. After the holy light dissipated, only John was left in front of the portrait of the cathedral. However, he had an additional snow-white angel armor and 6 snow-white angel wings on his back. His entire body emitted terrifying holy light. Did it succeed? How interesting. I wonder if this is the first guardian to appear. Far away in Chess Mountain's cave, a seductive woman who was chained up suddenly had a strange look in her eyes as though she had sensed something. However, the strange expression disappeared very quickly. She looked at the cell phone floating in front of her. There were photos on the cell phone interface. The content was actually a picture of Wang Minjuan breaking into the alternate dimension. I didn't expect that there would be such a powerful person among the humans today. He actually devoured the guardian of the dragons. It seems that the human world isn't as boring as I thought. The seductive woman retracted her gaze and suddenly revealed a strange smile. She opened the chat app and clicked on a friend profile picture to send a message. In the seductive woman's friend list, there were only 2 groups. One group had more friends, while the other group only had 1 person. Now, she had sent the message to the friend in that one group. Zhou Wen was studying the flying immortal pose when he suddenly heard his phone ring. He knew that it was a message from the theurge. He opened it and couldn't help but frown slightly. "You have big trouble awaiting you." There were only 6 simple words on the message. "The theurge, I haven't offended you recently, right?" Zhou Wen replied. Since when did I say you offended me? The Thirch replied. Then why are you giving me trouble? Other than me, can't anyone else give you trouble? Apart from you, should there be anyone else? Zhou Wen asked. That might not be the case. The Thirch then sent another message. I'll give you a chance. Be good and come to Chess Mountain to swear loyalty to me. I can help you tide through this calamity. I appreciate your kindness, Zhou Wen said. All right, I'll wait for you to come to Chess Mountain to beg me. The Thirch seemed very confident. Chapter 525, Official Chapter. Zhou Wen knew that if the Thirch said that there was trouble, there was a high chance that it was real trouble. However, if he always remained subservient to her, there was no room for negotiation in the future. Zhou Wen didn't wish to be a puppet that was at the mercy of others. Furthermore, he also wanted to know if his zero taboo could withstand the Thirch's wish powers. While Zhou Wen became extra careful, he constantly studied the Flying Immortal stance. The rank 10 Dragon Gate, Flying Immortal skill and Transcendent Flying Immortal had some improvement, but they had yet to take the final step needed for a breakthrough. Zhou Wen didn't know what breaking through an epic rank 10 Essence Energy skill would become. It would be best if he could break through to the mythical stage, but it clearly wasn't that easy. Through his battle with Torch Dragon, Zhou Wen constantly honed himself. It could be said that his posture was very similar to that of a flying immortal, but he was still lacking something. He had yet to reach that realm. Sometimes, many inventions that shocked the world needed a flash of insight other than continuous experiments. What Zhou Wen lacked now was that glimmer of light in the darkness. Zhou Wen could now last for more than 2 hours in the battle with Torch Dragon, but it was useless. Even if he lasted 99% of the time, everything was useless if he didn't kill Torch Dragon. Zhou Wen was gaming one day when he suddenly received a call from Xianxia. Young Master Wen, there's something I have to tell you. This matter can only be decided by you. Xianxia's voice was a little solemn. It was different from the usual Xianxia. What's the matter? Zhou Wen knew that something that could make Xianxia so serious was definitely not simple. He recalled the trouble the Thirch had mentioned. John of the Cape family, do you still remember this person? Xianxia asked after some thought. I remember. He once came to our school, Zhou Wen answered. Yes, it's because he lost to you and had his essence energy C crippled that he made a request to our family to have a fair battle with you. Furthermore, he took the initiative to propose a duel in Luoyang, Xianxia said. Zhou Wen's heart skipped a beat. He knew that the trouble the Thirch mentioned was most likely John. He remembered that the Thirch had previously chatted with John online. Because the other party has officially proposed a duel and is willing to come to Luoyang alone to challenge you, it's not appropriate for us to reject him on your behalf. You have to decide on this matter yourself. If you aren't willing, young Master Wen, you can reject it, Xianxia said. John's essence energy C should have been destroyed, right? How did he recover so quickly? Zhou Wen asked. In theory, it shouldn't have been possible for him to recover so quickly. However, since he dares to challenge you in Luoyang, I'm afraid he has not only recovered, but he should also have improved. Xianxia paused for a moment before saying, from my point of view, I don't think you need to take the risk to accept the challenge. Young Master Wen, you think I'll lose? Zhou Wen was somewhat surprised. Xianxia should know that he had a 6-winged guardian dragon. It was clearly unusual for him to persuade him not to accept the challenge under such circumstances. The Cape family has mythical creatures as well. On the cube's ranking, there are 4 mythical pets from the Cape family. I suspect that John will be bringing a mythical companion beast with him this time. Xianxia shared his thoughts. Zhou Wen didn't say a word as Xianxia continued. Mythical companion beasts have their own specialties. It's very dangerous to rashly accept challenges without knowing what abilities they have. I've seen some mythical creatures before. Their abilities are extremely unreasonable. As long as you get hit, death is certain. There's nothing you can do about that even if you're stronger than him. Just like Love Letter, we studied it for years and only attacked it after knowing its various abilities. Otherwise, we would definitely suffer heavy losses. I understand what you mean, but I want to accept this challenge, Zhou Wen said after some thought. From Zhou Wen's point of view, this wasn't a battle between him and John, but a secret battle between him and the Thirch. The Thirch seemed to play both sides, seemingly purposefully, but also inadvertently making Zhou Wen rely on her more and more. Just like the previous few times when she showed her might to him or gave him benefits, she would intentionally or unintentionally show Zhou Wen her strength and invincibility. She would inadvertently create a lofty image, as though Zhou Wen would enjoy endless benefits as long as he remained subservient to her. And if he disobeyed her, he would suffer an irresistible blow. Although the Thirch hadn't really harmed Zhou Wen from beginning to end, Zhou Wen could sense that this wasn't a good thing. In the past, the former principal had once said to Zhou Wen that one needed to respect everyone, but one couldn't let respect turn into reliance. Otherwise, one would lose the possibility of reaching the pinnacle because the person you relied on was your end. Therefore, Zhou Wen wanted to accept this challenge not because he wanted to defeat John, but because he wanted to break the net that the Thirch had weaved over him. He wanted the Thirch to fail once. All right, since you've already decided, I know what to do. I'll help you choose the location and time. In Luoyang, you won't be at a disadvantage. No one can use external forces to affect you, but you have to be careful. Don't underestimate John just because he has lost to you before, and Sheng said seriously. Thank you. Zhou Wen felt a sense of warmth in his heart, and Sheng was truly concerned about him. It had been a long time since someone cared for him. And Sheng hung up the phone and turned to say to Xianxia, who was sitting behind his desk, Overseer, young Master Wen has decided to accept the challenge. Indeed, he's still too young. Since John dares to come to Luoyang alone, he must have made all the necessary preparations. The battle is extremely dangerous, so there's no need for him to take the risk, said Xianxia. And Sheng smiled and asked, Overseer, if it's you, would you accept or refuse? If I accepted it, that'd be because I have the strength to deal with any situation. Although Xianxia didn't give a direct answer, anyone could tell that he would accept it if it were him. I believe young Master Wen can handle it as well, and Sheng said. I'm just afraid that he will be arrogant and think that he's invincible after obtaining a mythical companion beast. When that happens, he won't even know how he died, sneered Xianxia. It wasn't in Sheng's place to say anything else. And Xianxia paused before saying, Go and set up the venue. If the Empress Dowager finds out that he suffered, she'll probably launch a tirade at me again. Yes, and Sheng accepted the order and left. Few people knew that John was going to Luoyang to challenge Zhou Wen, but it spread among the 6 families. The other families found it odd. It hadn't been long since John's essence energy C was crippled, but he had recovered so quickly. He even dared to challenge Zhou Wen in Luoyang. Clearly, this was something unusual. Many families were secretly observing the matter.